Lord of Mystery. The Return of the Stars chapter 441 to 460. Is it really such a coincidence? After a busy day, Klein came back to this old Ross-style bar, ready to order a few glasses of the unique wine here to relax his tired body and mind. Living on the sea for so long, he may not have learned anything else, but drinking to relieve boring nights is a skill he has already mastered. But now, he regretted that he didn't wash up and go to bed earlier tonight instead of coming here. In this case, he would not have met the person he just thought of during the day, Earl Hasta Campbell. This young Earl, who should still be in South Wales, appeared in front of him with his true face at this moment. Should I call him naive or bold? Thinking of the connection between the King in Yellow and Hasta during the day, Klein looked at Count Hasta Campbell with a bit of fear, and then pretended to look away as if nothing had happened. Fortunately, one of the drinkers got up and left, blocking the line of sight between the two people. Klein also took advantage of this opportunity to find a secluded seat that could avoid the sight of Count Hasta Campbell. Well, Klein took a sip of wine and felt much bitterer than usual. Because of the appearance of Count Hasta Campbell tonight, not only did he not feel relaxed, but he became even more tired. Hasta and the King in Yellow are explosive existences no matter which worldview they're placed in. Stay away, stay as far away as possible. Klein doesn't want to be contaminated. Sir, someone would like to buy you a drink. While Klein was thinking, the bartender came over and brought him a bottle of green jade worth about 5 gold pounds. Under the gestures of the bartender, Klein had no choice but to look at Count Hasta Campbell, who suddenly gave him a drink, with a forced smile on his face, indicating that he had accepted the drink he sent. His heart was filled with confusion. He had obviously changed into a new face, which was completely different from Klein's previous image. How could he see through his disguise at a glance? Can his eyes see through reality and illusion? Or was giving him this bottle of wine just a test? Klein thought that there was only one flaw in him that might show some flaws. When he first saw him, he was shocked in his eyes. This little emotion should have been caught by the other party. After drinking a glass of wine in silence, Klein decided to go and thank the other person. If he just pretended that nothing happened, wouldn't that make him look suspicious? And even if the other party sees his true identity, he and he are not enemies. When Audrey, who was a little dazed after drinking, saw someone approaching, her eyes narrowed slightly. For a moment, she seemed to see Mr. Fool coming towards her. This made her drunkenness dissipate instantly, and she regained consciousness. When she looked again, the person in her field of vision was obviously not Mr. Fool, but an adventurer who had lived on the sea for many years. She withdrew her gaze, glanced at Mr. Hasta, and then continued to sip this powerful wine. Sir, thank you for your generosity, giving me the opportunity to taste the green jade that I am usually reluctant to buy. Klein smiled and naturally sat in the empty seat on the other side of Hasta, talking to Austria Deli is separated by Hasta. If you need help with anything, for the sake of the wine, I can try to give you some valuable advice. While Klein was talking, he asked the bartender to get the wine glass, then picked up the wine in front of Hasta and poured himself a glass, acting like a drunkard. I don't need help with anything. Giving wine for free? I can't feel at ease with such a free gift. You look a lot like an old friend I knew. Facing Hasta's calm gaze, Klein's heart almost stopped beating for a moment. It's just that they are very similar. Don't take it to heart. You deserve that bottle of wine. Looks like tonight is my lucky day. Klein didn't dwell on the matter anymore, thanked him, returned to his seat, and began to taste the bottle of green jade. Mr. Hasta, is that person really your old friend? Audrey came over and asked curiously. It may or may not be the case. There are always some people who don't like to be recognized for their original identity when they go out. The necessary disguise is just a means of self-protection. Like what I am now, Miss Audrey's beauty is enough to shine on the entire sea. The necessary disguise is a kind of protection for others. When did Mr. Hasta's praise become so straightforward? Audrey's face was already flushed, and she looked particularly cute and delicate when she said these words. While the two were drinking and chatting, Klein had already left here first. Not long after he left the bar, Hasta also led a slightly drunk Audrey out of the bar. Audrey still held Hasta's arm and leaned against her gently. The black magician robe hid her beauty and figure. Her cheeks were rosy due to drunkenness. Only Hasta had the opportunity to appreciate them up close. Arrive. Mr. Hasta, are we still coming out tomorrow night? Audrey's eyes were shining brightly like little stars. Hasta agreed to this small promise, then took Audrey to a deserted place, opened a travel portal and returned to the Hope. As for the meeting with Mr. Fool, Hasta thought it would be good to go back and change into a vest. After returning to the Hope, the sea breeze blew for a while, and all the alcohol in Audrey's body was blown away. After saying good night with a smile, she took Susie back to her room to rest. Hasta took a bath, then lay on the bed, entered the Hall of Stars, descended into the star container, and returned to the port as the King in Yellow. Only this time, he did not choose to seal his memory, but just used this ragged yellow clothes to act. He also wanted to see if there would be anything different tonight. It is difficult to find Klein hiding on the Origin Castle, but it is not too difficult to find Klein who is disguising his identity. When Klein, who was taking a walk outside, was about to return to the hotel to rest, there was only a figure in ragged yellow clothes on the street in front of him. Klein subconsciously wanted to turn around and leave, but he restrained himself a little and took 2 steps forward. Then he deliberately pretended to be anxious about something he had forgotten to do, and turned back, away from the tattered yellow clothes. But before he took a few steps, he saw that ragged yellow clothes again in front of him, and his position was even closer to him. Klein knew that he would encounter a mysterious incident tonight. Take a deep breath and concentrate on alertness. He quietly held a pistol named Death Knell in his right hand, and in the palm of his left hand lay a destiny charm from Will. Although taking action is not a good choice, facing this unknown king in yellow, one cannot be too careful. As the 2 figures got closer and closer, Hasta deliberately lowered his voice and said, "Mr. Klein, I saw the pistol tightly held in your right hand." Klein froze on the spot. On the one hand, he was surprised that the other party directly revealed his identity. On the other hand, the voice was very familiar. It was the voice of Mr. Hasta. It's him pretending to be the King in Yellow. What a coincidence that Hasta is walking around the world pretending to be the King in Yellow. This is simply destiny. After the shock, the worry and fear in Klein's heart were reduced a lot. He put away the Death Knell pistol exposed in his right hand and tried to answer in a calm tone. "Mr. Hasta, how did you recognize my true identity?" "My eyes are very good at seeing people. Your disguise is very good, but there are still some flaws." "Mr. Hasta's disguise is really amazing." Klein said this completely sincerely. Who would have thought that it was really Hasta inside the tattered yellow suit? The King in Yellow and Hasta actually appeared in front of him in this form. It was really indescribably weird. In this aspect, we are the same, and we are all used to walking outside with disguised identities. Hearing these words, Klein couldn't help but feel a toothache. I am indeed walking under a disguised identity, but what about you? Hasta pretending to be the King in Yellow? Is there really such a coincidence? When Klein was full of doubts, Hasta took out a book from his pocket and threw it to Klein. "My disguise image comes from this book." Klein took the book and gasped when he saw the cover. The ragged figure in yellow on the cover is indeed the King in Yellow. There are actually fans of him in this world, and even novels about his mysterious deeds have been written. No wonder Hasta would disguise himself as this person. Judging from the appearance alone, the image of the ragged yellow clothes can indeed satisfy people's fantasies about the mysterious world. For a moment just now, he almost wondered whether Hasta was a time traveler like him. After reading this book, he gave up this unrealistic conjecture. If Mr. Hasta was really a time traveler, how could he appear in front of him so openly? And he still appeared in ragged yellow clothes. Is he afraid that he won't know that he is connected to the original world? Another point, given his status, there is no need to have such a frank chat with him, right? Mr. Hasta, I give you a piece of advice from the bottom of my heart. The image of ragged yellow clothes represents ominousness and disaster. Next time, you should pretend to be someone else. Klein still gave his own little advice. In the mysterious world, symbolic meaning is very important. Oh, really? Recently, many people like to use this image to haunt late at night. Hasta said with a smile, and said, "You haven't read this book yet, but you seem to be interested in the yellow clothes. Do you know the king very well?" Klein was stunned for a moment when he was asked, and his mind was thinking rapidly about how to answer this question. You just said that there are many people walking around dressed like this late at night. Klein ultimately chose to avoid this problem by asking rhetorical questions. The Star Child is the best-selling mystery novel at the moment. There are always some people who have finished reading the book and like to embrace the mystery in this way. Mr. Hastur, you seem to know a lot about this. Mr. Klein, you haven't answered just now why you know so much about the King in Yellow. There was a wry smile on Klein's lips. Why did the boomerang fly back again? I just heard people talk about it. Then Klein invented a non-existent person, gave Asta Science some information about the King in Yellow, and then pretended to casually ask why Asta appeared here. Adventure, the relics of Emperor Russell have reappeared after his death, which are of great archaeological value. As a lover of Emperor Russell's culture, how can I miss such an event? Klein can still accept this reason. During his adventure on the sea, he had met many crazy admirers of Russell. In order to decipher the mysterious text left by Russell, they were even willing to pay their lives for it. The crimson moon had quietly disappeared without knowing when, and there were only a few stars hanging in the sky. The wisps of starlight falling down could only illuminate a small space in front of the eyes. Klein's heart suddenly trembled, and he looked up at the figure in ragged yellow clothes who claimed to be Hastur. The figure still looked blurry under the hazy starlight, especially the face. It was obviously not wrapped in ragged yellow clothes, but it still made it impossible to see the true face clearly. This gave him a ridiculous idea. Is the Mr. Hastur who is communicating with him in front of him really Hastur himself? Or is it an illusion created by the King in Yellow to confuse himself? He knew that he suspected that Hastur was related to the King in Yellow, so he deliberately appeared in front of him pretending to be Hastur. If the Hastur in front of him is the King in Yellow, it would reasonably explain many coincidences. The more Klein thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. When encountering mysterious events, nothing could be speculated using common sense. The alertness in my heart has increased several times again. Mr. Hastur, why can't I see your face clearly? When Klein asked this question, the destiny charm in the palm of his left hand was about to be triggered, and he was ready to fight. Can't you see clearly? Asta looked back and spoke in a deliberately erratic and depressed voice. Then let me come closer and let you take a closer look. No, no need. Klein tensed up and decisively refused the proposal. It's getting late. I still have matters to deal with. Mr. Hastur, please rest early. When Klein wanted to leave, the lights on the entire street suddenly flickered, then returned to darkness, and the surrounding area fell into silence. In this world with only scattered stars falling, the figure in tattered yellow clothes in Klein's field of vision seemed even more vague and mysterious. Mr. Klein, are you doubting me? The understatement made the surrounding temperature colder by several degrees. The inexplicable chill penetrated along the skin and penetrated into the flesh, and then invaded the heart. Klein took a few steps back and said, "This is not suspicion. I just don't believe that Mr. Hastur will appear here tonight for no reason. Maybe I just came to catch up with you. Reminiscing about old times late at night, this way of meeting is too unique. Meeting is just meeting, it doesn't matter whether it's day or night." Then why hasn't Mr. Hastur rested? Because I came to see you. While the two were having a brief conversation, Klein was keenly aware that the shadows on the ground caused by the falling stars overhead were constantly flowing into the feet of the ragged yellow man. Only then did he realize that the feet of Mr. Hastur in front of him, covered by ragged yellow clothes, were tentacles as black as ink. It is they who are constantly greedily devouring the shadows and darkness around them. Looking closely, Hastur's originally blurry face was now wearing a pale mask. There seemed to be countless tentacles moving under the mask, completely blending with his flesh and blood. This scene made Klein's scalp tingle, because the real King in Yellow has such an image. Face comes from the heart. Klein thought of this sentence for some reason. Could it be that he saw through the disguise of the King in Yellow and was able to see his true side? Can't stay any longer. Find a suitable opportunity to leave as soon as possible. Mr. Hastur, do you remember Leonard from Backland? He is our mutual friend. Klein shouted deeply, and the silent atmosphere around him was instantly broken, and even the flowing wind stopped for a moment. Klein seized this opportunity and ran back as fast as he could. At the same time, he pulled the pistol named Death Knell, and the sound of pistols resounded throughout the street. He jumped far away in one breath, until the street that had lost its light for no reason suddenly lit up again. He stopped and calmly observed his surroundings. Pedestrians were walking around, and the shops along the street were still open, and occasionally the sound of bargaining could be heard. Although it was late at night, there was still a bit of excitement. The ragged yellow-clothed figure in front of him had disappeared, and the chill he brought was also dissipating from his heart. Sure enough, the person he was talking to just now was not the real Mr. Hasta, but the King of Yellow in a mysterious incident. Klein stood there in a daze for a long time, until the pedestrians beside him started to talk about his alert appearance with the Death Knell pistol. He put away the Death Knell and left. In the darkness at the end of the street, the ragged yellow-clothed figure disguised by Hasta also quietly disappeared. This prank was more successful than he thought. Especially the last part. When Klein began to doubt, he cooperated with Klein to create some mysterious and gloomy atmosphere. This made Hasta already think about how he should veto his appearance here tonight when he saw Klein next time. Audrey, who was awakened by Susie at dawn, opened the window, faced the morning sea breeze, and gradually regained consciousness. She also recalled that she went out alone with Mr. Hasta late at night last night. The corners of her mouth slightly raised, and she felt much more relaxed and happy. The sea scenery that was almost tired of seeing seemed to be much more playful and lovely than usual. Audrey, can you take me with you next time you go out? Susie stretched out her front paws and lay at the end of the bed, with a face full of resentment and grievance. It also wanted to go out and play, instead of staying on the boat all the time. No, Susie, you need to cover up my tracks. Audrey, this is not what you really said, you lied. Susie's eyes suddenly became sharp, as if she could see through Audrey's heart. You deliberately didn't let me follow you so that you could go out alone with Mr. Hasta. Susie. Dong dong dong. When Audrey was about to find an excuse to fool around, there was a knock on the door outside, which made her suddenly forget Susie's question and get up to open the door. The people who came were Zio and Furs, saying that there was another pirate group nearby that wanted to attack the Hope. Soon, Audrey led Susie to follow Furs and Zio to the deck. Through the telescope, they clearly saw 6 ships in front, arranged in a semicircle, waiting for the Hope to enter their pocket. Audrey also saw that this pirate group had its own exclusive flag, a pirate flag with white bones painted on it. This is the pirate group of Admiral Disease, one of the 7 great pirate generals on the sea. Fortunately, Admiral Disease's exclusive flagship Black Death did not appear here. Zio, who collected a lot of information about pirate groups, explained in time. Her eyes were shining. The pirate group without Admiral Disease was simply a bounty delivered to her door. It was a golden coin that would shine in the sun. Audrey put down the binoculars in her hand and handed them to Furs, who was also interested, and asked in confusion, "Are they coming for us on purpose?" Shu smiled and said, "I don't know, but no matter who they come for, it's a considerable bounty." While they were discussing, Hasta also walked out of the room and came to the deck. "Mr. Hasta, good morning." Audrey greeted him with a smile as always. Hasta also smiled and greeted him. Shu came over and reported to Hasta about the encounter this time. "The fleet of Admiral Tracy of Disease, are they here to find the missing Elaine? Is it such a coincidence? Wait, if so, wouldn't it be possible to enjoy the scene of Klein dressed as a woman?" Hasta's thinking, in the eyes of Shu, Furs and others, seemed to be facing a problem. Could it be that Mr. Hasta was also afraid of Admiral Disease? "Mr. Hasta, the Admiral Disease and her flagship Black Death are not here," Shu reminded. Hasta put away his thoughts and said with a smile, "I just remembered an interesting thing." Yes, the interesting thing about Klein wearing women's clothes for the first time. If Audrey is brought along when watching, Miss Justice can also see the other side of Mr. Fool's different interests. As the Hope approached, the subordinate ships of Vice Admiral Disease's pirate group began to fire warning shots, bombs exploded in the nearby waters, and several small boats were sent over. As before, Hasta let Audrey and others solve the problem by themselves, which was a kind of experience for them. Audrey and the others still took the original countermeasures, letting Hugh face the enemy head-on, Audrey to support, Furs to rescue, and Susie to press back. When the pirates on the small boats rushed to the deck, they saw Hugh standing in front of them alone. Although he was a little short, his heroic feeling made many pirates who had not tasted meat for a long time have evil thoughts. They asked to search the entire ship, and their words were full of teasing for Hugh. Hugh just looked at them coldly, his eyes swept across their faces one by one, looking for faces that met the bounty-wanted order. Unfortunately, only a small leader worth 800 gold pounds was found. Seeing that they had divided into several groups and were about to start searching for the hope, Hugh only shouted, which temporarily shocked their minds, and then pulled out the long whip from his waist, like a spirit snake exploring the way, and whipped their disgusting faces. Without Audrey and Fur's help, Hugh dealt with the small group of pirates in front of him alone, pulled the rope that had been prepared long ago, tied up the little leader worth 800 gold pounds, and then whipped him several times. Just now, his eyes were the most obscene. Perhaps they noticed that the situation had changed, and the pirate ship belonging to the sick general in front began to focus on the Hope. At this time, the helmsman of the Hope was replaced by the butcher. He put the large butcher knife on the side, revealing his strong and powerful arms, and steered the Hope to swerve left and right, but did not let a shell hit the Hope. This inexplicable phenomenon also stunned the pirates on the pirate ship. The steering skill was just average, but the luck was too good, and the hull always passed by the shells at the critical moment. Soon, the Hope broke out of the encirclement, and the three pirate ships behind followed closely. Zio shouted, "Furs, it's up to you. I haven't learned the ability of accurate portal yet." Okay. Zio, who was originally very excited, died down all of a sudden, but soon, she cheered up again. She just caught a pirate worth 800 gold pounds alone. Even if she divided it, she could earn 500 gold pounds. As for the three pirate ships chasing behind, if there is a chance to deal with them again, you can also ask Mr. Asta for help. But this request was rejected by Asta. Not every adventure has him to support it. It is also a kind of wisdom to evacuate in time. And Zio's behavior cannot be indulged, otherwise she will ask her to help catch those pirate kings tomorrow. Audrey's mentality is very calm. She is no longer interested in hunting pirates. It is more interesting to go out with Mr. Asta at night. In the following nights, Audrey followed Asta to the nearby port or seaside city for fun many times. She really saw what adventure on the sea was like. There were pirates fighting each other for a little money, full of betrayal and blood. There were also pirates who were tired of killing and plundering, married their beloved girls, returned to their hometowns to live in seclusion, and finally returned to a peaceful life. There were also adventurers and pirates who hunted each other with intrigue. What Audrey found most interesting was the bar in the port, where you can meet all kinds of people and hear all kinds of mysterious and bizarre stories. When Audrey heard from others that the 3-man and 1-dog combination broke through the blockade of the pirate group of Vice Admiral Disease, she felt a little proud. The only pity was that she had never seen Vice Admiral Disease. It was said that he was a very beautiful pirate captain. He looked weak on the outside, but had a reputation similar to that of a moving natural disaster. He was a person with both beauty and cruelty. When she asked Mr. Asta just looked her up and down and said with emotion, if it was Miss Audrey, Vice Admiral Disease would definitely entertain her with all his strength and throw himself on you with joy. At first, she didn't understand the meaning of this sentence, but after listening to others' discussions for a long time, she understood the meaning of this sentence, and she glared at Asta in shame and anger. He knew that Vice Admiral Disease liked girls, but he deliberately teased her like this. I heard that the operation of Vice Admiral Disease pirate group this time was to find a girl who escaped from the Black Death. A girl named Elaine, in the Intis consulate in Byam, the city of generosity. Elaine sat in front of the dressing table, looking at her beautiful and haggard self in the mirror, with a sad look in her eyes. Since leaving the Black Death, she has been fleeing everywhere, and it was not until she fled here that she found a temporary resting place. Although this is the Intis consulate, it is not enough to make her feel at ease. Only when she returns to her hometown, Trier in the northern continent, can she really let go of her mind. She had another choice, which was to cooperate with the Loan military and the Church of Storms, using herself as bait to capture Admiral Tracy. As long as she caught this pirate general, her merits would be enough for her to return to Trier safely. But she still refused. Although her life on the Black Death was rich at night, she could not hate the tough-looking girl who brought her extreme pleasure. What Admiral Tracy, she was just a greedy person. Elaine did not think further, her face was already flushed. After a long time, she regained her composure and began to dress herself up and disguise herself so as not to be found by Admiral Tracy's men and then be captured on the Black Death again. She took off her clothes, wrapped her chest with a cloth strip, and then put on a white shirt, a black vest, men's trousers and a double-breasted long dress. Finally, she took off her silk hat and put it on her head, covering her long red hair. Now she looked like a handsome boy in the mirror, especially her emerald eyes, which were as deep as gemstones. After the disguise was over, she got up and left the room, followed the friends of the family elders, and came to the side door of the consulate garden. There was already a carriage waiting here, which could take her to the port, and then she could buy a boat ticket through the port, leave here, and return to her hometown, the Republic of Intis. But when she got on the car and drove for a while, she found that she was kidnapped, because this was not the way to the port at all. She wanted to escape, but she felt an unspeakable fear deep in her heart, as if she was being stared at by some terrible monster, ready to swallow her up at any time. "I don't want to hurt you, I just want to ask you some questions." Elaine struggled for a while, but finally stopped resisting and asked the other party about the real purpose of kidnapping her. After hearing her agreement, the door of the carriage was opened, and a thin and strong coachman walked in and sat opposite her naturally. Elaine was alert and slightly bent her back, ready to pounce like a cheetah at any time. She tried to speak calmly. "Who are you? Why do you want to catch me?" The only thing she could be sure of was that the other party was definitely not Tracy's person in the disease. The coachman sitting opposite Elaine did not answer the question immediately. His eyes slowly swept across Elaine's forehead, eyebrows, eyes, nose, mouth, neck, chest, and even between her legs. Such an unscrupulous look made Elaine extremely uncomfortable. She wanted to resist and escape several times, but in the end she still sat in her original position unnaturally, just tightening her clothes and keeping her legs tightly together. "What on earth do you want to do?" This time, Elaine asked with a little anger, trying to make the other party understand that she was not a toy at the mercy of others. "I want to ask everything about you, including your various physical data." Elaine opened her mouth and was a little dumb for a while. After a while, she began to cooperate with the other party's questions. Then the other party asked about various information about the diseased General Tracy, including how she got along with her, and how she resisted and silently endured every night. Then the other party asked her to remove her makeup and show her real face. Although Elaine thought the other party's request was strange, she still tried her best to cooperate with the other party, removing her makeup, taking off her hat, and spreading her long red hair, revealing her shy and resistant appearance. In the end, the other party directly asked about the size of her breasts. Elaine blushed and glared at the expressionless person opposite. Can anyone really ask such a shameful question with such a blank expression? She wanted to punch him, but in the face of her shame and anger, he just said calmly, "This is an academic question." She finally gritted her teeth and told him the answer, but she only cursed a few perverts in her heart before she breathed a sigh of relief. The only thing that made her happy was that the other party really wanted to let her go, but she couldn't go out during this period of time and needed to be imprisoned for a short time. Until now, Elaine has understood that the other party wants to learn all kinds of information about Admiral Tracy of Disease through her, and then start hunting. Although Admiral Tracy of Disease had imprisoned herself on the Black Death and bullied her at will, when she saw someone trying to hunt her, her first reaction was distress and guilt. But soon, Elaine got rid of this inexplicable emotion. As a pirate general who has done a lot of evil, it is a very common thing to be hunted by adventurers. Even if the hunt was not successful this time, there will be adventurers who will hunt again next time because of the huge bounty and reputation. After arranging Elaine, Klein rubbed his slightly sore and stiff face. He also asked those embarrassing questions with great difficulty. But playing the faceless man is also a very important part. It is easier to accept to just play a girl than to change from a man to a woman directly through the witch path. Alas, if there were not more adventurers hunting pirates recently, he would not have taken action against Admiral Tracy in advance. As long as no one I know sees it, it's fine. Klein could only comfort himself in this way. In the captain's room of the Black Death, Admiral Tracy was choosing a suitable long whip. Choosing a long whip is also a profound knowledge. First of all, the surface of the long whip should not be too sharp, otherwise it will easily hurt the delicate skin when cutting through clothes. The most suitable long whip, with appropriate force, can cut through the clothes that are in the way and leave a light red mark on the white and tender skin. It hurts a little, but it is not the kind of unbearable pain. The slight pain will make people moan beautifully. Elaine, how do you think I should discipline you this time? Tracy whispered, and the fingertips of her right hand gently touched each long whip, and finally chose a dark black, nearly 2-meter long whip. The person who escapes needs a certain lesson, and you can't easily forgive her every time, otherwise she will choose to escape next time. It's still very interesting to play this game occasionally. When Tracy had chosen a whip that suited her, there was a knock on the door. Captain, Elaine has been brought aboard. Oh, let her go down and wash herself, and then change into a new set of clothes. Tracy smiled, put the whip on the table, and then lit a candle. Sometimes, the dim light of the candle is more mysterious and can cover up some excitement that cannot be told to outsiders. After finishing these things, she came to sit behind the desk, crossed her slender legs, and the clothes she wore were cooler and more transparent than during the day, and you could vaguely peek into her heart-stirring style. On the other side, Klein, who pretended to be caught and successfully sneaked into the Black Death, was restraining his deep shame and began to wear women's clothes. In the original world, there is such a saying that women's clothes can only be worn once and countless times. Although he didn't think he would be obsessed with this feeling in the future, it felt good to wear women's clothes, very cool, and the feeling of clothes touching the skin was very delicate. Fortunately, he had practiced the components of women's clothing before, otherwise, he would not be able to dress neatly and not reveal any flaws in this regard. After changing into women's clothing, Klein came to the full-length mirror and looked at the charming self in the mirror. Her red hair was loose, her green eyes were shining like gems, and she was wearing a golden red long skirt. The ribbon around her waist was tied into a flower, which was very tight, highlighting the slenderness of her waist as much as possible. Her face flushed slightly, as if she was shy, but also like she was forced to be angry and helpless. Klein looked at himself in the mirror. If you really want to count, his appearance as a man dressed as a woman can be ranked in the top 3 among the women he has met. Those stubborn and helpless eyes really make people want to conquer and discipline from the bottom of their hearts. While there is still some time, Klein focused on practicing the emotions in his eyes, trying to fit the role as much as possible to avoid being easily seen through. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door, and there was a voice urging him from outside. Klein took a deep breath, adjusted his mentality, and walked out of the room with anger and stubbornness. The blonde maid glanced at him, raised the handcuffs and said, "Put your hands behind your back, you are a prisoner now." Humph. Klein turned around and let the other party handcuff him. He couldn't help but feel a little strange. He had only seen the handcuffs in some comic books. After putting on the handcuffs, he came to the captain's room under the guidance of the blonde maid. "Let her come in alone." There was a voice from the captain's room that didn't have much emotion. The blonde maid's eyes darkened, pushed open the door, and signaled Klein to walk the last part of the journey alone. Entering the captain's room, the door was closed again. Klein walked in on the thick carpet, and with the dim candlelight, he saw the sick Lieutenant General Tracy sitting behind the desk. She wore beige trousers on the lower body and only a white linen shirt on the upper body. She was very beautiful inside. Fortunately, her long black hair covered the most critical part. It must be said that there is really no ugly person in the witch path. Their appearance and charm are not comparable to ordinary people. The sick Lieutenant General Tracy in front of him was also very beautiful, and her beauty was very aggressive, especially the look she cast on him, as if she wanted to tear off his dress and take every inch of his skin into her eyes. At this moment, Klein thought of another thing instead. The sick Lieutenant General Tracy in front of him should have been a man, and so was he, but 2 grown men were doing this in a dark room with candlelight and long whips. Fortunately, there is no UC browser in this world, and no one saw this scene of him wearing women's clothes, otherwise it would definitely become the front page headline tomorrow. Come here, do you still need me to go and invite you in person? Facing Tracis' commanding words, Klein still stood still, just slightly raised his chin, his eyes slightly red. Tracy watched for a while, then chose to walk from behind the desk to Klein, staring at her red eyes. Tell me, how should I punish you this time? Coming back here is the biggest punishment. Klein tried his best to imitate Elaine's tone and emotions. Coming back is a punishment. Tracy reached out and touched Klein's cheek and slid down. Her fingers slid across her collarbone intended to continue moving down. Her eyes were hazy and her tone was extremely seductive. Although you resisted at the beginning, in the end, you were always more enthusiastic than me. Madam, do you want to listen to what you are saying? I am still pure, but I cannot understand your ambiguous words. When Tracis' fingers continued to move down along her collarbone, Klein's left palm strangely pulled out of the handcuffs, grabbed her wrist fiercely, and pulled it down hard. Take off this powerful extraordinary item from her hand. Tracy, who had encountered a shocking change, woke up instantly from the haziness in her eyes, but Klein had already taken the lead. She was hit hard in the abdomen, and her body retreated in pain, followed by the sound of gunshots. Although she dodged in a hurry, her shoulder was still hit, and a string of blood spurted out. She could not suppress her anger and said, "You are not Elaine." Klein did not answer, but accelerated his offensive, trying to get rid of this disease vice admiral in a short time. Unfortunately, he still underestimated the combat power of a pirate general. This disease vice admiral Tracy had other life-saving extraordinary items on her. When she took the opportunity to shout that the enemy was attacking, Klein knew that he should leave. This is the Black Death. There are at least a dozen Beyonders on board. If they unite, they can keep him on board. Assassins, if you fail to strike, you should flee immediately. Klein finally smashed the window and jumped into the sea to leave. Traumatized, Tracy looked at the direction where Klein fled with sharp eyes. Did Elaine betray her? No, she might just be forced. Thinking of this, the pain and hatred in her heart were mostly dissipated. Then she looked at the first, second, and third mates who rushed into the captain's room and began to assign tasks, while letting the Black Death set sail at a high speed, away from its original location. In the middle of the night, at the private port of Blue Mountain Island, a female figure emerged from the ebb and flow of the tide. It was Klein in Elaine's guise. Klein walked from the sea to the beach and was about to change his appearance and return to the appearance of Gehrman Sparrow. Suddenly, a voice came from the front. Mr. Asta, look, there seems to be a girl drowning in front. The crisp and pleasant voice, although a little anxious to rescue someone who fell into the water, is still elegant and calm. Mr. Asta. Klein's heart trembled inexplicably. No way, is there really such a coincidence? It should be just a coincidence, right? Klein didn't even have the courage to look up. He just wanted to turn around and leave quickly, soak in the sea water again, and let the tide carry him to other places. Now, he was wearing a tattered golden-red long skirt, and a corner of his top was burned in the battle just now, revealing his crystal-white skin, and vaguely visible his considerable breasts. There was no way. Elaine herself was not small. In order to play this role well, he basically restored every part of his body one-to-one. If he was recognized by someone familiar with him, he would be socially dead. The degree of social death was no less than that of Russell pretending to be a witch in person. Klein pretended not to hear the voice, turned around, and quickened his pace to leave. Hey, wait a minute, the wound on your back is cracked and needs treatment. We won't hurt you. There was a sound of anxious footsteps from behind. Seeing that he couldn't get away smoothly, Klein could only take a deep breath and hope that Mr. Asta in the previous words was not the Asta he knew. When Klein turned his head with all his strength, he saw a familiar figure under the moonlight. Hasta Campbell. It was really the young Earl of Backland. Klein's facial expression froze, and he forced a bitter smile on his face. Now, he could only hope that Asta didn't recognize his true identity. Madam, you are seriously injured. You should get treatment first. Audrey looked at the beautiful girl with tattered clothes and scars with sympathy, and then glanced at Asta beside her, reminding her with a little dissatisfaction, "Mr. Asta, staring at a lady in distress like this is not the demeanor of a gentleman." "Sorry, I just suddenly felt that this beautiful lady in front of me looked very familiar." Very familiar. Klein accurately grasped the key point of this sentence and glanced at Asta. He saw that the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, and the smile that was about to overflow from his eyes was so obvious. His heart skipped a beat. Was his identity exposed? No way. But why did he feel so panicked? Beautiful lady. Audrey grasped another key point of this sentence. While checking the back injury of Klein, who was pretending to be Elaine, he also looked at her appearance and figure. Sometimes she was secretly surprised, sometimes she frowned slightly. After a simple bandage, Audrey suggested that Klein go to the clinic for more detailed diagnosis and treatment, and at the same time asked Klein about the reason why he was in trouble late at night. Klein's mind turned quickly and he said that he jumped off the pirate ship and drifted to this beach along with the tide. Audrey, who has a sense of justice, immediately asked for the name of the pirate group. After hearing that it was Vice Admiral Disease Trassus pirate group who had done the evil again, she felt even more disgusted with the Lieutenant General Disease, whom she had never met before. "Thank you two kind people for your concern. I'm fine. I won't bother you anymore." Klein wanted to find a reason to leave, but Hasta smiled and said, "It is late at night and it is not safe here. Let us escort you to a nearby clinic." Audrey also thinks that this way of handling it is more appropriate, but Mr. Hasta has never been very fond of trouble. Isn't he a little too enthusiastic tonight? Could it be that Mr. Hasta prefers girls with this style? Audrey peeked at Hasta again and found that he was staring at the damsel in distress in front of him with a smile in his eyes. "No need to go to such trouble. I know the way here." Klein quickly declined. Hasta's eyes fell on him, and there was always a feeling like a light on his back. "Didn't you drift here with the tide?" Unable to shirk, Klein finally had no choice but to accept Hasta's proposal and was escorted to the clinic by the two men. Along the way, Audrey and Klein talked about many topics, and Klein also took the opportunity to find out why Hasta appeared here. They were out for fun. As for why they were walking on the beach in the middle of the night, it must be the unique interest between young lovers. For him, who has always been single, this question is still a bit out of line. But the more they chatted, the more Klein felt something was wrong. Why did the Miss Audrey in front of him look so similar to Miss Justice? The conversation and temperament, appearance and Rune Backlund's accent are all printed from the same mold as Miss Justice. It can't be such a coincidence, right? Klein's scalp was numb and he could not help but shiver. When Audrey saw this, she thought he was catching a cold because his clothes were damp. "Do you want to ask a tentative question?" Klein thought for a while, but gave up the idea. There will be plenty of time to investigate who Miss Justice is, but if Miss Justice realizes that he is Mr. Fool. Mr. Fool is a girl. Such explosive news will definitely shock the entire Tarot Club. All the Tarot Club members would look at him with curious, complicated, and shocked eyes. Arriving at a nearby clinic, Klein once again thanked Hasta and the two for their help and was eager to let them leave. Audrey also felt that she should not stay any longer, but Asta had no intention of leaving. Instead, he smiled and said, "Ms. Elaine really looks like someone I know." This is the second time Hasta has said this tonight. Klein can no longer pretend not to hear it. He is already sure that his identity as a man disguised as a woman has been exposed. The only good thing is that the person standing in front of him who discovered that he was disguised as a woman was not Leonard. Otherwise, he would really have no face to see anyone in the future. "Mr. Hasta, you must not have any undue evil thoughts towards a girl in distress." Audrey reminded her again, feeling a bit queasy for some reason. Although she felt that she was more beautiful than the distressed Miss Elaine in front of her, the weak and stubborn look in Miss Elaine's eyes was indeed very heartbreaking. "Maybe I made a mistake. Mr. Klein, made a mistake. It was Miss Elaine. Let's leave first." Asta apologized with a chuckle, and then led Audrey out of the clinic. Before Klein could breathe a sigh of relief, he heard the clear conversation between Hasta and Audrey, who had not gone far. "Are Mr. Klein and Miss Elaine really similar?" "Well, it's not a matter of resemblance. I suspect they may be the same person. But isn't Mr. Klein a male? How could he become Miss Elaine?" In the mysterious world, anything can happen. Wait a minute, Mr. Hasta, you don't want to say that the Mr. Klein you know is an extraordinary of the witch path, right? This, I really don't know very well. Klein couldn't hear the conversation clearly, but he didn't need to hear it clearly. After taking several deep breaths, he suppressed the chaotic thoughts in his heart, and finally told himself in his heart, this is the faceless man's acting. He is always acting, rather than completely becoming another person. Shame and panic are emotions that must be overcome when playing a faceless man. You must be prepared to have your identity revealed at any time. Klein's suppressed face showed a sweet smile again, completely thinking that he was Elaine. If he meets Hasta again, he will face it with a calmer mentality. At least he will not feel ashamed or afraid of being exposed, but will be calm and calm. Who says men can't wear women's clothing? At the same time that Klein realized this, his faceless man potion was completely digested and he was ready to be promoted to Sequence 5 Marionette Master. Klein's mood became even more complicated. He could only hope that he could catch Hasta's social death scene in person next time. After leaving the clinic, Klein found an uninhabited house, exchanged his expensive dress for a set of ordinary men's clothes, and then transformed into the appearance of Gehrman Sparrow. Fortunately, Mr. Hasta did not suddenly appear in front of him this time. Back on the Hope, seeing Audrey looking a little depressed, Hasta deliberately said, no wonder Emperor Russell admires the beauty of witches so much. The extraordinary people of the witch path do have a different charm. Audrey said seriously with a stern face, Mr. Hasta, witches usually represent pain and torture. It would be a disaster to like them. Well, I will resolutely listen to Miss Audrey's reminder. I will never indulge in the charm of witches. Asta answered very seriously, which made Audrey blush. She glared at Hasta slightly and led Susie, who was standing by, back to the room. Hasta went to take a bath, soaking in the comfortable warm water, with his head tilted back, and the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up. When he thought about Klein dressed as Elaine tonight and being encountered by himself and Audrey, this extremely socially dead scene, Klein's sense of shame was about to explode. Originally, he also thought about whether to expose Klein's identity directly on the spot, and then ask him, Mr. Klein, is it you? Finally, he thought about it and left Klein with a little fig leaf. After all, if all his clothes were torn off, Klein would just break the jar and throw it away, which would be meaningless. The only pity was that Audrey didn't know that the beautiful Miss Elaine who appeared in front of her tonight was the mysterious and unpredictable Mr. Fool. Speaking of which, I am also helping Klein complete the role of the faceless man. On the sea, the dawn greeted the first ray of sunlight at dawn and came to the outer waters of the mysterious island where Russell stored treasures. Bernadette walked out of the captain's room and came to the bow deck, looking at the island where her father was buried. The sharp corner of the black mausoleum protrudes from the dense forest, almost as high as the mountains on the island. Without a doubt, that is the last mausoleum left after his father failed to jump to the Black Emperor's path. As long as this mausoleum is still there, there is still a glimmer of hope for resurrection. Bernadette stared blankly for a long time, then asked the fleet to disperse and surround the entire island, prohibiting any ships from approaching and not allowing anyone to land on the island. She herself did not plan to land on the island, but to intercept all those who wanted to land on the island. The members with radical ideas under her command finally chose to surrender under her accumulated prestige. But the news still spread like wildfire. Soon, the pirate group that was still searching in other seas came and asked Bernadette to end the blockade and let them land on the island together to share the treasures left by Emperor Russell. Bernadette did not waste time talking to them, but just drew a circle that prohibited passage. Once crossed, it would be destroyed without mercy. At the beginning, there were relatively few forces coming, and Bernadette could still deal with them calmly, relying on powerful force to deter. However, as time went on, more and more pirate groups gathered. It was difficult for her to completely protect the entire island with her own force. She could only kill them so that all the pirate groups dared not come forward. It was not until the people of the Storm Church also appeared here and stood on the same front with Bernadette that Bernadette's pressure was greatly reduced. In order to better deal with the affairs of this island, the Storm Church and the Church of the Goddess of the Night each sent an archbishop to discuss countermeasures with Bernadette. This result directly led to the mysterious Queen Bernadette being removed from the list of pirates and no longer being listed as the Pirate King. Even the code name of the mysterious queen was also ridiculed as the Servant of the Storm. A few days later, Asta and Audrey's Hope also came to the outskirts of this island. Standing at the bow, holding a telescope and looking into the view, the sight was full of the characteristic flags of various pirate groups. Hugh was so excited that he kept shouting. There were so many pirates gathered here, and there were also many well-known pirates on the wanted list. Ranging from a few hundred gold pounds to tens of thousands of gold pounds, there was even the flagship of the undead King Agaritu, the death announcement. This is a pirate king who is more valuable than a pirate general, with a total bounty of more than hundreds of thousands of gold pounds. Hee hee, the undead king, hundreds of thousands of gold pounds, hee hee. Okay, if you keep yelling, even Susie will think you're too noisy. Furs patted Zio's head, signaling her to calm down. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Woof. Susie glanced at Furs with dissatisfaction, which made Furs apologize quickly, saying that he shouldn't use its name to scare Hugh. In many cooperations, she finally understood that Susie's strength might be better than hers, and she was very fast in dealing with pirates, not much worse than Miss Audrey. In the combination of 3 people and 1 dog, she could only bully Hugh. The sky there seems to be a little different. Audrey looked up at the sky, pointing to the area that was not covered by clouds. Hugh and Furs also looked in the direction she pointed, and saw that there was no cloud above the island, and the sky was clear and blue. This was nothing, but in the sky outside the island, the clouds gradually gathered to form a gray-white circle. The circle gradually grew larger, as if it was going to bind the entire island inside. Hastur naturally saw this unusual scene, but he did not feel the oppressive and violent breath from the Lord of Storms. This scene might be created by the bishops of the Church of Storms, so that the Lord of Storms could be allowed to descend directly at a critical moment. This was just a guess, so he didn't tell Audrey and the others, and watched the development of the situation silently. Although the pirates were numerous, their high-end combat power was far inferior to that of the Storm Church and Bernadette. They quarreled fiercely, but no one dared to force their way into the island again. Time passed little by little, the scorching sun in the sky sank into the sea, and the crimson moon sprinkled a peaceful and crimson moonlight, reflecting the entire sea surface more and more bright as blood. Under the cover of the moonlight, there were always some island groups that were unwilling to stop and began to act. With repeated forceful intrusions, the number of corpses floating on the sea surface gradually increased. Their bright red blood just merged into the sea, and the crimson moon originally reflected on the sea surface was dyed dark red by blood. Blood and death, is this the situation that the fallen Mother Goddess expected? But the clergy of the Church of the Goddess of Night will hold a purification ceremony after the death of the pirates, and the blood should be useless. Asta still stood at the bow and looked around, without any intention of taking action. Audrey stood quietly beside Asta, her eyes blurred, and I don't know what she was thinking about. Hugh looked at the sea where the shouts and screams came from with an unwilling look on his face, and he wanted to summon Miss Audrey to complete a few more wanted orders. Furs went back to write a novel, saying that inspiration came. In the second half of the night, there were fewer people who dared to sneak onto the island at night, and the sea surface returned to calm. The next day, a few bodies that were not collected in time occasionally floated on the sea. The bodies were pale and swollen, and the blood on their bodies seemed to be drained. Hugh and Audrey just looked for a while and returned to the room. Asta looked at the island where Russell was, which seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog, making it impossible to see the truth. He also looked at it from the Hall of Stars, but he didn't see anything special. If you want to know what happened specifically, you need to go to the island to see it yourself. But this is very dangerous, it is better to keep it like this. 2 more days passed, and tonight is the full moon of the 15th day. After dinner, Furs hid in the room early, praying for the protection of the stars. Her decision was correct. The full moon whispers tonight were stronger than any other time. She seemed to have come to the source of the full moon whispers and touched the curse at close range. Even with the protection of the stars, she could not completely avoid the damage caused by the full moon whispers. Her already sparse hair fell out several more strands. She curled up in the quilt, shivering. "Shoo, I just saw that all my hair fell out. It's okay, this is how you look smart." Shu stayed by the bed and patiently guided Fur's emotions to prevent accidents. Hearing the suppressed painful sounds coming from Fur's room, Susie shuddered and moved a little further away. Hall of Stars. With the end of the full moon whispers, Hastur withdrew the protection of the stars. Through Fur's full moon whispers this time, he was extremely sure that the fallen mother goddess was watching here from the distant starry sky. Because of the existence of her power here, Fur's full moon whispers were enhanced to a terrifying level. Mr. Men. Asta tapped the table with his fingers, thinking about an important thing. If the fallen mother goddess's attention is completely on Russell, then can it indirectly affect her state by influencing Mr. Men? Regarding how to purify Mr. Men's pollution, he has done many deductions, striving to find a useful way to help Mr. Men, so as to limit the influence of the fallen mother goddess on the real world. Russell, we must wait until a more appropriate time. Asta thought a lot and decided to wait. The fallen mother goddess was too terrible. For the first fight, he must consider it carefully. It's a pity that the other outer gods are not here now except the sealed lamp god. Otherwise, they can go to the island to explore the situation first. Anyway, they are just a clone, so they can make the best use of it. Hey, the original hunger said that it would send down a clone. Asta looked at the star where the original hunger was, and after a careful search, he did find a small light spot. Zooming in, Hastur saw the clone of the original hunger. His clone had successfully descended with his help last time. But there was something wrong with his style. He is like a super-sized Luffy, eating and drinking on a big ship. Well, a more accurate description should be stuffing food into his mouth. He is like a big round balloon, with a waist as wide as 4 or 5 people. His huge butt is sitting directly on the deck. His short legs and facial features are almost buried in the fat pile. The only slender thing is his arms, which can be stretched freely like rubber, responsible for stuffing all kinds of food on the long table in front of him into his mouth. On both sides of the deck stood 2 rows of crew members who were trying to catch seafood from the sea. Some people were responsible for sending the caught seafood to the kitchen for cooking, and then bringing out the cooked food from the kitchen. Busy, like a grand buffet. But there was only one guest at this buffet. Look at the way he eats, it's more than 3 days without a full meal, it's simply the reincarnation of a hungry ghost. Let me see which unlucky pirate group has this master. Oh, it turned out to be the death call of the undead King Agaritu. I didn't expect him to come near the island, which was just right, and it would save time. Asta just admired it for a while, and the idea of food in his heart became less and less. Such eating broadcasts are suitable for watching when losing weight. Seeing that the original hunger started to pound the long table because the food was served too slowly, Asta knew that the time was almost up. He opened a starry sky directly above the head of the original hunger through the Hall of Stars. Endless starlight gathered, and the shadow of the Hall of Stars stood majestically above the stars. With just one glance, the original hunger stopped eating. His eyes were dull, as if he didn't understand why the stars came to him at this time. He glanced at the shocked crew members beside him, opened his mouth and sucked it hard. All the light was sucked into his stomach, the surrounding world was dark, and only he was facing this starry sky alone. Stars, what do you need me to do? Go to the island. That's the territory of the fallen mother goddess. All your food. Okay. Primordial hunger thought about it and agreed. Next time, you need to help me descend. Okay, one condition at a time. Primordial hunger nodded, and the starry sky above his head dissipated. On the death announcement, the world was as dark as ink, and all the crew members knelt on the ground trembling, lowering their heads, not daring to make an extra sound. When the darkness in front of them dissipated, at the long table, the mysterious visitor who was originally bloated like a balloon, now turned into a bald strong man more than 3 meters tall, with a sturdy and powerful figure, and arm muscles like tree trunks. His upper body was naked, without a piece of clothes covering it, and his lower body was wrapped in a yellow-brown leather skirt, and his right hand was waving a white bone club. It was a simple smelting of the bones extracted from a huge marine creature that he had eaten before. The whole person looked like a hunter walking out of the primeval forest. The 3-meter-tall body brought a strong sense of oppression, and the surrounding crew members lowered their heads and dared not look around. Yuanchu looked towards the island with hungry eyes, touched his smooth head, bent his legs slightly, and jumped towards the island. The huge impact force made the entire death announcement make a sound of breaking under the heavy load. The black hull began to collapse with the point of support of his feet as the center. The undead King Agaritu looked at his flagship with distress, and hurriedly urged the power of the death announcement to reunite the scattered hull. After finishing this matter, he dared to look up and look in the direction where the mysterious visitor left. I saw that his figure had passed through the vast sea and landed on the island in the distance. The violent sound when he landed could be clearly heard even from such a distance. "Hey, Bernadette, if you have the ability, kill him." The corners of Agaritu's mouth rose slightly, but soon he seemed to think of something, and his whole face fell again. The original idea of escaping was also cut off by him in time. "If you want to survive, you better be honest." Bernadette knew that someone had entered the island, but she did not stop them. As for how the people of the Storm Church wanted to act, she would not interfere. Because when the mysterious being jumped onto the island, the lamp god was laughing beside him, saying that it was a powerful being sent by the stars to investigate the situation on the island, and asked her not to stop it, so as not to ruin the stars' plan. As for the identity of the powerful being, the lamp god did not say it, but looked at the direction of the island with a look of disgust and gloating. Is that person also a believer of the stars? Bernadette's awe of the stars in her heart deepened. Like the Church of the Goddess of Night and the Church of the Storm, there are usually only 2 sequence 2 angels, but the number of angels she noticed in the stars' apostles has long exceeded 2, at least 3 or more. This made her very curious about the extraordinary path that the stars were in. Are there really so many sequence 2s who can be promoted? Don't speculate about the stars. Let's look forward to whether this exploration can find out the specific situation of your father. The genie excitedly shook the wishing genie lamp. This is the first confrontation between the stars and the fallen mother goddess. It's really exciting. Hearing the genie say this, Bernadette also began to hold hope, although the stars have been warning her that it is not the right time yet. In the Hall of Stars, Haster's eyes followed the perspective of the original hunger to the island where the last mausoleum of Rissel was hidden. As soon as he landed on the island, the original hunger rushed to the direction of the mausoleum at an astonishing speed. With a 3-meter-tall body and a momentum of running at high speed, it looked like a heavy tank rolling over. There were originally many extraordinary creatures living on the island, but under the amazing momentum of the original hunger, they were scared and dared not go out, and even crawled on the ground. This allowed the original hunger to come to the periphery of Rissel's mausoleum unimpeded. With the arrival of the original hunger, Haster could clearly see that the breath of the fallen mother goddess was getting stronger and stronger. When the primordial hunger smashed the door of Rissel's mausoleum with a stick that was as powerful as a bamboo, a dark pillar of light shot straight into the sky. This was not pure black light, but a black and sticky liquid like thick slurry. To be more precise, this was a tiny black creature full of decadence. It began to multiply infinitely, spreading and expanding, turning into tentacles dripping with black mucus, gradually covering the entire sky. Asta on the Hall of Stars, the field of vision that he could see was gradually squeezed, and he could only barely see the scene in front of the primordial hunger. This should be a means that the fallen mother goddess deliberately created to cover up his peeping. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. The first person to set foot on this island was neither the stars nor Bernadette, but the primordial hunger. No. Why are these black tentacles still growing? Asta stared for a while and keenly realized that something was wrong. These black tentacles not only wanted to cover his vision, but they also had other functions. The island's unusual movements attracted the attention of Bernadette, the Church of Storms, and many pirate groups. In their sight, the whole island seemed to come alive, with black tentacles extending from the ground, extending and thickening into the sky, like black mountains rising from the ground. The crimson moon in the sky looked so small and delicate, as if it would be tied up by the black tentacles in the next moment and then torn down from the sky. when the black tentacles completely covered the light of the crimson moon and the stars in the sky. The black tentacles slapped down horizontally, like mountains pressing down, crushing the ships in the nearby sea. In other words, they were launching indiscriminate attacks on all ships in the nearby sea. Some ships were crushed directly in front of them, some ships were submerged by waves caused by the black tentacles falling down, and some were just rubbed, and the ship was destroyed and people died. Because the black rain formed by the black mucus was also deadly. In just an instant, a large area of the densely packed ships in the nearby sea was cleared. The Hope, where Hasta and Audrey were, was also within the attack range of the black tentacles. Hasta was very careful in watching the incident from across the sea, and deliberately stopped the Hope in the outermost circle to avoid being affected by the sudden change of the island. But it still failed to completely leave the range of the black tentacles. It was too long and too thick. When it was shot vertically, it looked like a black sword that cut through the sea. Faced with such power, Hasta quickly descended on the star container and appeared on the bow deck. His right hand turned into a solar shield that supported the entire Hope, and his left hand opened a travel door that could be used to teleport away. The butcher and the maid on the ship also realized that something was wrong, and hurriedly turned the ship around, wanting the Hope to pass through the travel door standing on the sea and leave this extremely dangerous sea area. As for Audrey, Furs, Zio and others, they could only watch from afar the back of the star container that suddenly appeared, holding up the shield with one hand and turning into a door with the other. Before the black tentacle that fell straight down arrived, drops of black mucus fell like heavy rain. Tick, tick. Pollution, black pollution began to spread. When the black tentacles hit the solar shield, a sound like thunder was heard. The violent shock caused the bodies of ordinary crew members on the ship to explode on the spot. Audrey, Furs and others spit out a large mouthful of blood at the same time, and blood kept flowing from their ears and noses. Susie, who had the most sensitive hearing, truly felt the stimulation of the thunder exploding in her ears. Her eyes were dull and lifeless in an instant, and her whole body fell limply to the ground, twitching all over, and her mouth kept foaming. Susie. Audrey wanted to call out, but her voice was completely covered at this moment. The only thing to be thankful for was that the solar shield supported by the star container did not break, and the Hope was not smashed. But the attacking black tentacles hit in vain, lying on the surface of the solar shield supported by the star container, and actually split directly to both sides, opening a mouth full of dark red mouthparts, like a huge black crack, wanting to swallow the entire Hope. Sizzle. This is the corrosive sound of black mucus dripping on the solar shield. Like heavy rain, the black mucus constantly pollutes and erodes the surface of the solar shield, making the holy light on it even dimmer. Not only that, in this night without the crimson moon and the light of the stars, the solar shield held up by the star container is like the brightest beacon, attracting the attention of other black tentacles. In just a moment, there were 6 black tentacles coming from different directions. Hasta could feel their impatience and eager greed. This was the will of the fallen mother goddess. The reason why he included all the nearby sea areas in the attack range was to find different abnormalities from them. He knew that the incarnation of the stars was also here, so he wanted to find himself in this way. This is the strategy of killing 1,000 by mistake rather than letting 100 go. What Hasta couldn't figure out was how the fallen mother goddess exerted such terrible power through the initial barrier tonight. The disaster and momentum caused by him were obviously beyond Sequence 1, almost at the level of the Angel King. Obviously, Mr. Men and Russell, who were the mediums, could not really be used by him for the time being. Unless, there were other outer gods who helped him in the past. God said, "Let there be light." Hasta did not think for too long, and the star container he controlled exerted the extraordinary power of the Eternal Sun's authority with all his strength. Sequence 2 Light Chaser. Endless light spread outward from the star container, going deep into the dark area. The extremely dazzling light, with the ability of the sun to purify pollution, dispelled the polluted sea and the night sky where black mucus kept falling. At the same time, in the sky covered by the black tentacles, a small hole was pierced that could receive the light of the crimson moon and the stars. The falling starlight and the sun's light reflected each other, expanding the small hole. Boom. Brother Storm, it's late but it's here. The cloud circle outside the island began to gather and converge, and finally formed a storm group that could brew fierce thunder. Golden lightning like the sun rushed in crazily through the hole opened by the star container. Every golden thunder accurately hit the black tentacles. For a moment, the golden thunder controlled the sea that should have belonged to him. The black tentacles were scorched, and they kept breaking into pieces and falling from the sky, causing waves. Unfortunately, the only flaw was that the Storm Lord's attack was only this one, and it could not completely solve all the black tentacles. It only helped Hasta to resolve the offensive for a short time. The dead bodies of the pirates on the sea, the blood that had not been purified, and the endless resentment before death, once again became a tonic to nourish the power of the fallen mother goddess. A series of bright red tentacles with blood flowing out from the depths of the sea continued to rush madly towards the Hope where the star container was located. Regardless of anything, the mad rushing appearance made people's scalps numb. At this moment, the Hope was getting rid of the previous tentacle's engulfment. Half of the hull had entered the travel gate, and the back half of the hull was tightly entangled by the blood-red tentacles. Oh, it's a pity that it's still a little short. The star container took a step out to the stern, and he threw out a previously made destiny spell with destiny as his hand. Time Zero Talisman. The power of time began to erupt at this moment, with the Time Zero Talisman as the center, pulling everything around to zero and restart. The blood-red tentacles tied to the stern disappeared one by one, and the time they could exist in the world had been reset to zero. The butcher and the maid who were operating the helmsman noticed that the resistance of the hull disappeared, and they pushed the Hope with all their strength, carrying Hasta's real body into the travel door and disappeared into the distance. The star container did not leave with it. His eyes looked at the black world that was covered again, and glanced at the 3x0 talismans in his hand. At the moment when time was reset to zero just now, the power of the fallen mother goddess obviously weakened. This means that the power that the fallen mother goddess erupted tonight was temporarily borrowed. Borrowed power must have a time limit. The time zeroing talisman is simply a magical tool for these things with a certain concept of time. Just now was the first time that the time zeroing talisman worked, and it also made him understand its function better. The next time it is used, it will definitely be more effective. When the star container stood on the sea, looking at the dark red sea stained by black mucus and blood, his eyes passed over the blood-red tentacles in front of him and looked at the island in the distance. Since the fallen mother goddess has shown her power, now is a good time to go to that island, and there is also the primordial hunger running rampant on it. Snap! Snap! The surrounding blood-red tentacles have already regarded the star container as the most priority target to be solved, and even the black tentacles in the sky have fallen down. In response, the star container simply opened a door and avoided all the attacks and came to the island. There is no need to worry about the star container of hope. Now it has mastered 6 different extraordinary ways, both offensive and defensive. These tentacles with little wisdom can't stop him at all. As soon as he arrived on the island, he saw the original hunger reaching out and grabbing a black tentacle and swallowing it. Halfway through, he made a sound of poo, poo, spitting out the tentacle he had eaten, and seemed to complain that it was too smelly. Seeing the arrival of the star container, the original hunger turned back and looked at it carefully. Are you a believer of the stars, or the incarnation of the stars? Before hearing the answer, he smiled and said, look at the furious look of the fallen mother goddess just now, you should be the incarnation of the stars. You are too slow. Quote. The original hunger turned around awkwardly. Just when the fallen mother goddess was showing her power, he did stay there and dawdle. I didn't expect to be caught by the stars on the spot, it was really embarrassing. Perhaps because he was dissatisfied with the taste of the black tentacle just now, the original hunger picked up a big bone stick and smashed it all the way. From the entrance of the tomb all the way inside, everything that blocked the way was smashed. The star container slowly followed behind him, occasionally looking up at the dark sky. The hole that was pierced just now was eroded by darkness again. It has become a paradise for black tentacles, and the sea has become a sea of red tentacles. Perhaps it was because they noticed that the star container had landed on the island, and the black tentacles fell like mountains, but they were all smashed by the original hunger. He seemed to have pure power and could easily destroy things in front of him. Is this his authority? Or, he deliberately revealed this side to induce his observation of him? Because once he is thoroughly understood, it is easy to be targeted and fall. Demolished all the way, from the tomb door to the depths of the Black Emperor's mausoleum. The interior is empty, except for the dark walls and the high platform in the center, there is nothing else. On the high platform, there is a huge chair, which looks like it is prepared for a giant. It is made of iron, and the surface is engraved with complex, twisted and complicated strange patterns. The top of the backrest extends upward in the shape of a crown. At this time, there is no figure on this chair. It is silently empty, facing the darkness, waiting for the return of its owner, the Black Emperor. Is this the chair prepared for me? Primordial Hunger looked up, but it doesn't look delicious. He tried to walk to the platform, but felt a force of restraint and restriction, like an invisible shackle, entangled his hands and feet and all over his body, making it difficult for him to move. The Order of the Black Emperor. Primordial Hunger grinned and exerted force all over his body. The powerful force competed with the Order of the Black Emperor left here, and then he clearly heard the sound of some shackles breaking, and Primordial Hunger was able to regain his freedom. I can even swallow the rules and order of the bastard son of chaos, let alone a little Black Emperor. Primordial Hunger said, opened his mouth wide, took a deep breath, and the invisible broken order shackles were sucked into his mouth. After a few chewing sounds, he swallowed it into his stomach. When he wanted to continue to move forward, a twisted vortex appeared around him, and at the same time, there was a sound of metal clashing in his stomach. I forgot, this is just a clone. Primordial Hunger whispered embarrassedly, and then tried his best to digest the restless shackles of the Black Emperor's order in his body. Compared with the Primordial Hunger, which was restricted everywhere, the star container was not affected by the residual order of the Black Emperor here. The Star Hall was completely above the Black Emperor in terms of rules and order. Even the Son of Chaos was suppressed, although this was not the most important authority of the Star Hall. It was normal to think about it carefully. The Star Hall invited the outer god Old Day to come to the meeting. If you want these beings to honestly abide by the will of the Star Hall, you must have insurmountable rules and order. The Son of Chaos suffered a loss because after he was pulled to the Star Hall, he recognized the rules and order of the Star Hall and consciously abided by them. Compliance is an important prerequisite for the effectiveness of rules and order. Although it was not restricted, the star container did not act arbitrarily, but waited for the Primordial Hunger to open the way. Who knows if there is a trap set by the fallen Mother Goddess ahead? Moreover, in the dark corner of the Black Emperor's mausoleum, there is a hidden figure. He was looking at the star container and the Primordial Hunger in the dark, but out of natural fear, he did not choose to move forward. That should be the polluted Russell. He was supposed to be sleeping in the Black Emperor's chair, constantly fighting against the erosion of the fallen Mother Goddess in his sleep. When the tomb door was destroyed and the power of the fallen Mother Goddess increased, he woke up from his sleep on the throne of the high platform. Bang! Primordial Hunger patted his exposed belly, making a crisp sound, and the invisible but omnipresent Black Emperor order around him was destroyed. The so-called twisted vortex, in the eyes of Primordial Hunger, swept across with a stick, and smashed these twisted vortices into a black paste. Then, he took back the white bone stick, put his mouth over it and licked it, tasting it a few times. It tastes good, but it contains the stench of the fallen Mother Goddess. After licking it clean, Primordial Hunger walked with a burly figure, carrying the white bone stick on his shoulders, and continued to walk towards the high platform, his eyes gradually sharpened. When he came to the high platform and was about to smash the throne with a stick, the polluted black figure hidden in the dark rushed out, with distortion and chaos following. The little mouse hiding in the dark. The original Hunger swept across with a stick, but saw the space in front of him twisted and changed. The figure that should have appeared in front of him had come behind him, stretching out his hands covered with black mucus, trying to strangle his neck. The sticky black liquid dripped on the back of his neck, and a burst of burning and corrosive light smoke came. What a trouble! The original Hunger did not turn around, but grew a big mouth on the back of his head, biting the hands of the Black Shadow, tearing and swallowing the two broken arms into his mouth. Pooh, pooh, pooh. It stinks. The original Hunger chewed twice and spit out the food in his mouth. The vomited broken arm residue turned into black sticky liquid and returned to the broken arm of the Black Shadow, completing his broken arm. The Black Shadow, who had no success in one attack, knew that the prey in front of him was very tricky, and began to rely on instinct and use the authority of the Black Emperor. Chaos and distortion instantly filled the entire Black Emperor's mausoleum. The rules and order that had been sealed for who knows how long came to life again, forming black chains. Hundreds of black chains moved together, tightly entangling the original hunger. Although they could not do anything to his strong body, they also made him unable to move. After temporarily entangling the original hunger, the Black Shadow looked at the star container standing not far behind the original hunger, and then appeared behind the star container like a phantom, distorting the world around the star container, and even his senses and vision were all distorted. The star container just stood still, and suddenly burst into a holy light that was enough to illuminate the entire Black Emperor's mausoleum. In the face of the power related to the fallen Mother Goddess, the extraordinary ability of the Sun Path is very useful and comfortable. The Black Shadow, who has been sleeping for many years and has been living in the dark world, has never been bathed in or looked directly at this level of light. The black mucus flowing on his body made a sizzling sound of evaporation, and he also let out a shrill scream. In a flash, he left the area near the star container and came to the high platform, using the backrest of the Black Emperor's chair to avoid this light. The star container also saw the true face of the Black Shadow at this moment. He sat on the high back chair, with two cracks on his face, as if he had grown two asymmetrical eyes, with no pupils in the eyes, only a blood red. In front of the sun's light with purifying power, more cracks appeared around the black figure, and they bloomed blood-red flowers from the head all the way down to all parts of the body. Flesh and blood flowers made of flesh and blood. Through those cracks, you can see that there is a group of things emitting blood-red light inside the Black Shadow's body. It is very similar to the crimson moon hanging in the sky, but at this moment this crimson moon has not yet reached perfection, and many parts have not yet been fully gathered. Rissel, the Black Shadow transformed by the Shadow of Order, wanted to cover the light of the crimson moon, but the cracks on his body became more and more, and the light of the crimson moon became stronger and stronger. Rays of crimson moonlight were shining through Rissel's body from the starry sky into reality. The great Emperor Rissel, who created the Republic of Intis and led the trend of the times, was now just a vessel in the hands of the fallen Mother Goddess that could influence the real world. Dancing with the will of the fallen Mother Goddess, he lost consciousness while retaining a trace of his original self. The throne filled with loneliness and majesty was already his last dignity. He is a confident and even narcissistic person. He claims to be the protagonist of this era, and he has indeed become the person who leads the entire era to change. He is proud and aloof, a soul that is incompatible with this world, which makes him unable to completely integrate with this world. Such a person never thought that he would become like this one day. If he was not afraid that the fallen Mother Goddess would spread the pollution from the starry sky to the real world through his body after his death, he would probably have chosen self-death long ago. But the reality is that he can only stay alone in this dark and silent Black Emperor's mausoleum, fighting the pollution from the fallen Mother Goddess alone. This pollution has no end and will never stop. But tonight, a ray of holy light that does not belong here shines in, allowing him to bathe in the sun for the first time in a long time. Rissel, who was sitting quietly on the Black Emperor's chair, was temporarily awakened by the intervention of the purifying power on the fallen Mother Goddess. He raised a face full of eyes, his eyes were bloodshot, but contained a little clarity, and looked at the star container that was still emitting holy light. It's great, that's the warmth of the sun he has always longed for. He supported his chin with his arm with difficulty, leaned forward slightly, and stared at the sun that brought him a moment of clarity in his most familiar posture. He could see forever, forever. It was a pity that his children were not here at the moment, otherwise his life would be a small perfection. But he believed that his daughter Bernadette must have grown up very well, and she would be a big figure in the mysterious world. He felt very sorry that he could not see the little cotton jacket of the past grow up, or even see her get married. But he thought that no one should be able to marry his daughter, that was Bernadette who was prouder than himself. His second son, Benoit, should also be living a good life, that was the angel promised by the steam. Now think about it, for Benoit, this should be the best ending, he can grow up without worries under the protection of Steam. It's just that in the eyes of parents, children who are too rational are always less likable than children who cry, and they may even have a strange sense of isolation. This is like an adult's soul entering his child's body, talking to parents in an equal way, not acting like a spoiled child, not crying sadly, and being mature and rational. Forget it, Bonneva doesn't need his worries. The child he really worries about is his eldest son, Charles, who was born in his early years and only inherited a small part of his extraordinary characteristics. Compared with the geniuses of Bernadette and Bonneva, he is more like an ordinary person, ordinary in all aspects. Such a temperament and talent is definitely not a good thing in the mysterious world, and he seriously lacks the ability to protect himself. In such a distorted and chaotic world, paranoid people can live better. I don't know if he is still alive. Should he still be alive? Roussel was just daydreaming about the past. As for the two figures in front of him, he didn't care about their plans, even if one of them made him regain a brief sobriety. Because they all have an aura that does not belong to this real world, and the taste of the starry sky. They should be the incarnations of two former outer gods. They came here to deal with the fallen mother goddess through themselves. He didn't have any hope for this. After being entangled with the fallen mother goddess for so long, he became more and more aware of the terrifying existence of the fallen mother goddess. Even if he was destroyed, it would not have any effect on her. Although he really wanted to rush to the starry sky and beat up the fallen mother goddess. Roussel, are you awake again? Seeing that Roussel had calmed down and seemed to be recalling something, the star container roughly guessed his current state. I really want to thank you for your help, but unfortunately, you are from the starry sky. Roussel spoke slowly. He had not spoken to anyone for a long time, and the words he spoke were hoarse and difficult to hear, like a broken gong with a leaky throat. Give you a chance to try to get rid of the pollution. It should be aggravating the pollution. Your power is not suitable for this world. If you are willing to continue to let the fallen mother goddess control your next life, you can choose to refuse. Roussel was silent for a while before nodding and agreeing to try. When he promised, the previously suppressed power of the fallen mother goddess came back again, stronger than ever before. Roussel bent his body in pain, and severe pain continued to flow out of his body. The light of the crimson moon became more and more blood red, gradually resisting the purification from the star container. Stars. Roussel raised his head again, his face full of eyes, like a thousand-eyed monster, staring at the star container with a flashing scarlet light. Primordial hunger. Facing Roussel, who was occupied by the consciousness of the fallen mother goddess, primordial hunger just curled his lips and said, "Look again, I will dig out your eyeballs one by one and eat them." With the brief understanding of primordial hunger by the star container, it knew that he said this from the heart. You can't get out of this mausoleum. When the fallen mother goddess spoke, a ray of crimson moonlight behind her came from the sky, directly penetrated the cover of the Black Emperor's mausoleum, and poured directly into Roussel's body. The body, which was already full of cracks, had several new ones added to it. The crimson moon in the body was gradually condensing and taking shape, and began to change towards the full moon state. Once it reaches the full moon, it means that Russell's consciousness has been completely wiped out, and his body will truly become a container for the fallen mother goddess to intervene in the real world. The scarlet light flourished, briefly suppressing the light emitted by the star container, and filling the entire Black Emperor's mausoleum. The entrance to the tomb, which had been smashed by the original hunger stick, was closed again, and the entire Black Emperor's tomb was like a big mouth that was closing. You are worried, you will also. Russell's consciousness briefly woke up again, but before he could finish speaking, he was reoccupied by the consciousness of the fallen mother goddess. His body stood up from the throne, and the remaining rules and order of the Black Emperor way around him were filled with the atmosphere of corruption, decay, death, and withering under the influence of his power. At the same time, the aura belonging to the fallen mother goddess is also growing stronger. It is really like the resurrection of a god. I shouldn't be able to defeat him, I can only bite him a few more times. Primordial Hungry shouted and rushed forward waving the white bone stick. He is still very open-minded about his situation. After all, this is the territory of the fallen mother goddess. The other party has Russell as the descending vessel, which is far more powerful than his clone. There was no trace of fear on the faces of the stars' containers, they just looked calmly at the fallen mother goddess whose aura was gradually increasing. Sometimes victory on the battlefield does not have to be achieved head-on. On the shattered sea, Bernadette drove the dawn away in time. Because there were star vessels that attracted all the attention of the fallen mother goddess, she was able to successfully evacuate with those from the Church of Storms. Right now, she could no longer see the island where her father's tomb was located, let alone know what was happening on the island. In the captain's cabin, Bernadette could only watch from a distance through the window. The sea area there is still very dangerous. Too many deaths and too strong pollution have temporarily turned that sea area into a sea of death. The stars don't give up so easily. I think he will need you when dealing with your father's matter. Before the words of the genie's help could be uttered, a starry sky opened and bloomed above Bernadette's head. The stars shined forever. This was Bernadette's most pious salute. Call to your father. The indifferent voice of the stars came, and then the starry sky above revealed the situation inside the Black Emperor's tomb. Even though it was dim and hazy inside the Black Emperor's mausoleum, Bernadette saw her father for the first time after so many years. The face is beyond recognition, the body is constantly being polluted, and the consciousness is occupied by the fallen mother goddess. Bernadette's eyes suddenly turned red, but she clearly understood that now was not the time to be sad, but that she needed to use all her strength to awaken the humanity deep in her father's heart. Use humanity to fight against the pollution and erosion of the fallen mother goddess. Your Bernadette has grown up. Doesn't she look so strange that you can't even recognize her? But I still remember that when I was a child, you made picture books for me, compiled teaching materials, invented various small games, and often played with me. I still remember that you designed all the clothes I wore when I was a child. It's a pity that I can no longer wear the cake skirt you designed when I grow up. Bernadette looked at the dark shadow manifested by the stars, her eyes filled with indescribable sadness, but she tried her best to describe it in a calm tone. The suppressed pain and sadness were hidden in every simple word, in. At the same time, a bright starry sky opened above the head of the star container, and the stars shone brightly, as if to completely purify the tomb of the Black Emperor, which was full of corruption. Stars. Russell, who was fighting the original hunger, pulled away from his body, turned his neck, slightly raised his head and looked at the brilliant starry sky, with disgust, solemnity, and confusion in his eyes. He had obviously blocked the world, so why was the power of the stars still there? Can penetrate. Could it be that the person in front of me is not simply the incarnation of stars? Your Bernadette has grown up. She looks so unfamiliar that you can't even recognize her. The style of the brilliant starry sky suddenly changed, and the voice belonging to Bernadette was accurately transmitted here and into Russell's ears. Bernadette. The fallen mother goddess controlled Russell to rise into the sky, activating the power of the entire Black Emperor's mausoleum, wanting to destroy the starry sky to prevent Russell's consciousness from breaking free at this time. I still want to hear my daughter's voice again. Russell's body fell straight down again, his face full of painful struggle, replaced by Russell's increasingly stronger voice. Asshole. Don't underestimate a father's obsession. Seeing that Russell's somewhat secondary consciousness briefly returned, a time-zero talisman in the hands of the star container contained the power of the stars and was accurately attached to Russell's body. Return to zero. With a return to zero sound, the consciousness of the fallen mother goddess was forcefully stripped back to zero and restarted. The light of the crimson moon in Russell's body suddenly dimmed and began to shrink, while the suppressed consciousness of Russell kept waking up. At this moment, Russell was completely in control of his body. Russell, pray to the stars. The Lord of Chaos and Order. The origin of all rules in the starry sky. Guide everything to reset to zero. He who returns the stars. The star container chanted the honorable names belonging to the stars with a divine expression on its face. Compared with the previous three-section honorary name, the current honorary name of the stars has an additional line of description of, guiding all things to return to zero and restart. This is a new change that appeared in the Palace of Stars when Hastur jumped to the star path and promoted to Sequence 4 homeless. Resetting to zero and restarting is very consistent with the description of the power of the stars. This is also the origin of the name of the time-zeroing symbol in his hand. As for him currently, he can only trigger the authority to reset to zero through the time-zeroing spell. It will be necessary to capture Amon's clone in the future and use the time worm on him to create more time-zeroing spells. Rassel's consciousness, which briefly regained his body, originally rejected the chanting of such a strange name of a god. Who knows what terrible changes will happen? But the consciousness of the fallen mother goddess that had been suppressed was gradually coming back, which made him understand that he didn't have much time to stay rational. Since the other party was able to contact Bernadette and gain her trust, he could only choose to give it a try. He stood in front of the Black Emperor's throne, looked up at the stars, and prayed seriously in ancient Hermetic, the Lord of Chaos and Order. The origin of all rules in the starry sky. Guide everything to reset to zero. He who returns the stars. I hope to use your power to get rid of the pollution from the fallen mother goddess and return to my sober and clean self. Russell chanted what he wanted to pray for, and the fallen mother goddess in his body sensed something was wrong and began to fight back crazily. Ah! Russell groaned in pain, bent over and bent his knees, holding his hands tightly on the Black Emperor's seat to prevent himself from completely kneeling on the ground. He felt that his whole body was about to be torn in half. Just looking down, he could clearly see that the cracks in his body were getting wider and wider. The crimson moon inside had taken shape and was about to emerge from him. Conceived in the belly. At this moment, the star container attached another time-zero talisman to his body, helping him temporarily resist the pollution and erosion from the fallen mother goddess. At the same time, the starry sky above the Black Emperor's mausoleum became more and more dazzling, and the stars lit up one after another, like rising suns. The light belonging to the stars fell and enveloped Russell's body. This was a blessing from the stars and a kind of purification. Fallen mother goddess, I don't want to give you a child. Russell roared, and his cracked body began to heal gradually, trying to completely lock the crimson moon in his body. But the fallen mother goddess also showed a terrifying aura at this time. The top of the entire Black Emperor's mausoleum exploded completely, rocks flew, and the light of the crimson moon turned into blood and poured in. In the sky that was no longer obscured, there was only the light of the crimson moon, and the power of the stars was still shielded. This indicates that in tonight's battle for the crimson moon, among the three Mother Goddess of Earth, Mother Tree of Desire, and Fallen Mother Goddess has an overwhelming upper hand. The crimson moon in the sky, which is the full moon, provides the Fallen Mother Goddess with even more terrifying power and ability. Russell's body and limbs were wrapped with blood-red tentacles and held up in the air. This scene was like a sweet sacrifice to the crimson moon. Primal hunger, have you had enough of watching the show? The container of stars reminded him, and primordial hunger smiled awkwardly, stretched out his hand to touch his belly, opened his mouth and took a deep breath, which actually cut off the power of the crimson moon in the sky that poured into Russell's body out of thin air. Let the crimson moon in the sky no longer provide power to the little crimson moon in Russell's body that is about to be born. The light of the stars shone again. Russell, who was about to lose consciousness after being tortured, briefly regained consciousness. After seeing his situation clearly, he cursed. It turns out that giving birth is such a terrifying thing. His consciousness only existed for a moment before it was replaced again by the consciousness of the fallen Mother Goddess. The crimson moon in Russell's body revealed a bloody face, the fallen Mother Goddess. Primal hunger, the stars, the stars. The fallen Mother Goddess, who originally wanted to say hello, suddenly noticed something was wrong and quickly retracted her entire face. In the Palace of Stars, when Russell, the Black Emperor, prayed to the stars, the power that was born was similar to the power that Grey Carrie used to move the Palace of Stars when she prayed. But Hasta did not fully use this power on Russell. Instead, he found another way. He directly found the light point symbolizing Mr. Door and tried to separate Mr. Door from the fallen Mother Goddess. He has wanted to try this operation for a long time, but his own strength has not been enough to complete it. Tonight, with Russell's prayer, when the power of the Hall of Stars revives, he uses fate as a blade to forcefully cut the connection between Mr. Door and the fallen Mother Goddess. Use the power of the sun to weaken the power of the fallen mother goddess and purify the pollution, allowing the consciousness belonging to Mr. Men to be revived. Then use the power of night to snatch the control of the fallen mother goddess over the crimson moon. At the same time, he also used the power of returning to the palace of stars to draw the power of the mother tree of desire, the superstar master, the high-dimensional overlooker, the son of chaos, and the original hunger to the starry sky where the fallen mother goddess was. Using their power and authority, he severely weakened the influence of the fallen mother goddess on the real world. Unfortunately, his own strength was too low, and the authority to return to the position that could be exerted by the self-awakening of the Hall of Stars was greatly limited. Otherwise, at that moment just now, he could directly pull the former bodies of the outer gods, such as the Mother Tree of Desire and the Superstar Overlord, to the starry sky where the fallen Mother Goddess was. That would be a real gang fight. However, now, the starry sky where the fallen Mother Goddess is should be very lively. In the starry sky, at the initial barrier crack, the goddess of night stood in the lush and green kingdom of the mother goddess of the earth, looking straight at the crimson moon. Tonight, when the fallen mother goddess tried to occupy the symbol of authority of the crimson moon, the mother goddess of the earth and the mother tree of desire, who had obtained the uniqueness of the moon, were naturally unwilling. In the melee between the three, the fallen mother goddess, who suddenly strengthened her strength, had an absolute advantage. Even the mother goddess of the earth was almost affected by the pollution and erosion. It was he who lent a hand at the critical moment that allowed the mother goddess of the earth to pass this level without any danger. But the situation of the mother goddess of the earth is still not good. At this moment, the crimson moon is occupied by the fallen mother goddess, which is a kind of devouring of her authority. If it weren't for the mother tree of desire, he alone would not be able to compete with the fallen mother goddess tonight. Now, the situation seems to be a little different. The breath of the fallen mother goddess is weakening, and her control over the crimson moon has also wavered. In addition, the mother tree of desire has begun to counterattack frantically, and the fallen mother goddess is gradually losing control of the moon's authority. What is most worrying is that in the depths of the starry sky shrouded in darkness, corruption, and death, various breath fluctuations that make people tremble are transmitted. That should have been the territory of the fallen mother goddess, but now there are several uninvited guests. The ones that make him feel more familiar are the mother tree of desire, the superstar overlord, and the original hunger. As for the other two breaths, they are hidden deeper and difficult to see clearly for a while. What surprised him even more was that they were besieging the fallen mother goddess. Although many of the outer gods in the starry sky also fought each other, except for the particularly crazy ones, the other outer gods would control the situation to a certain extent. Most of them agreed to fight for life and death when the doomsday came, and the daily disputes were just minor episodes. But tonight, the situation seemed different. First, the light of the stars shone, and then the starry sky showed abnormal aura fluctuations. The outer gods, who were originally far apart, came to the territory of the fallen mother goddess in an instant, and then began to fight the fallen mother goddess in groups. It's really lively. The plump and soft earth mother goddess Lilith, stepping on the blooming wheat ears, accompanied by herbs, flowers and springs, supported by a dark brown wooden stick and walked slowly. Don't you want to rest? It's not a big deal for one night. Lilith came to the side of the goddess of night, looking at the chaotic and dark starry sky. With an inexplicable expression, are the stars and the fallen mother goddess mortal enemies? In his perception, so many things happened tonight, all caused by the fallen mother goddess and the stars. The two of them seemed to have had a conflict before. Because of the hostility between the two of them, the outer gods of the old days gradually split into two camps. At present, there are more allies on the side of the stars. It's just that the stars are too mysterious. In the direct confrontation, they seem to be inferior to the fallen mother goddess. This is just the sign revealed at present. Maybe the stars are just hiding their weaknesses, or their condition is really bad. For us, this is a good thing. The goddess of night said calmly, "You should also fully accept the uniqueness of the moon as soon as possible, otherwise, your situation will become worse." What about you? Are you not going to start accepting the uniqueness of the god of war's path? Wait a little longer. Are you worried about the position of the stars? No, the war has not really started yet. After a brief chat with the mother goddess of Earth, the goddess of night focused her attention on the starry sky in the distance where the conflict broke out. In addition to the two of them, the remaining 4 true gods in the initial barrier crack were also curiously looking around. Too much information was revealed tonight. The hostility between the fallen mother goddess and the stars, and the 2 outer gods' old camps have taken shape. Such a situation in the starry sky will inevitably affect the direction of the future doomsday. This also affects their attitude towards the stars. The god of steam and machinery stood quietly in his kingdom of God. At this moment, he was a little uneasy. He has always been concerned about Rissel's affairs. He also knew the news that Rissel's last mausoleum appeared on the sea, and he also cast a concerned look. But after discovering the breath of the stars, he retracted his gaze. After all, he had been an enemy of the stars. Seeing that the stars and the fallen mother goddess were hostile to each other tonight, this made him wonder if he had made a wrong choice again. Under the chaotic and disordered starry sky, the kingdom that originally belonged to the fallen mother goddess was knocked on the door one after another today. The original hungry power rushed forward, swallowing whatever it caught in front of it. The superstar overlord just pushed out planets one by one from afar, and fireworks bloomed in the kingdom where he was entrenched. The power of the Son of Chaos tore everywhere, bringing everything into a state of chaos and disorder, and even his sober reason almost became chaotic. The high-dimensional overlooker was the most hidden thief, as if he was secretly looking for something. The Desire Mother Tree, which was already hostile to him, was the most cheering one. Seeing the moment when he was distracted and unable to care about others, he frantically seized the authority of the Crimson Moon. In such a long time of standing in the starry sky, it was the first time that he was targeted by so many outer gods at the same time, which made him feel afraid of the stars and the star meetings he convened. It has not been 3 years since the stars awakened and showed their miracles. It is not even enough time to take a nap, but it can gather such a huge force. It was really scary. These were just the hindrances. The more critical thing was that his control over Mr. Men and Rissel was gradually weakening. Especially Mr. Men, who was originally more difficult to pollute than Rissel. Now his consciousness was gradually awakening, and there were signs of getting rid of his own pollution. Once the stars helped him solve the pollution, it would be difficult for him to infiltrate his power into the real world. Because Mr. Men's authority was the concept of all doors, and the original barrier to the real world was a closed door. He needed Mr. Men's authority to allow his power to enter the real world further. So between Mr. Men and Rissel, he chose to pollute Mr. Men. When the fallen mother goddess made the decision, Rissel in the Black Emperor's mausoleum gradually regained his consciousness, and the tentacles that entangled his limbs also retreated to the depths of the sea under the majesty of the Black Emperor. The power of the fallen mother goddess has weakened a lot at once. Maybe I can. No, I can't leave here. After Rissel was briefly happy, he quickly regained his sanity. Now he seems to have complete control over his body, but he is sure that the consciousness of the fallen mother goddess must still be hidden deep in his body, and the pollution from the starry sky still exists. Freedom is only temporary. Confrontation and pollution are eternal. Rissel returned to the throne of the Black Emperor, sat with a lonely face, lowered his head, looked at his hands, and after a long time, he lowered his voice and said, "I want to see my daughter, can you fulfill my little wish? You can pray to the stars, the more pious you are, the greater the gift." The star container said lightly. "Forget it then." Rissel grinned, "I dare not owe too much, I will not be able to pay it back, and I don't want my Bernadette to repay this favor for me. Oh, I forgot, you are from the starry sky, you should not understand what favors are. I'd better enjoy this moment of clarity alone." The downtrodden Black Emperor, sitting on his throne at this moment, chose to spend it in a calm and rational way. How could I sit and wait for death like this? I have to fight once. It's not easy to get such an opportunity. Rissel stood up from the throne, and the lonely and desolate aura on his body disappeared in an instant. Instead, he was as passionate and energetic as when he was young. "Stars, what else can you provide for me?" Rissel looked straight at the starry sky above his head. Amid the bright stars, there is a huge ancient palace, and a vague and illusory figure can be vaguely seen in the palace, mysterious and powerful, and awe-inspiring. You have 3 minutes of free time. Hasta, who was sitting in the Hall of Stars, finally spoke to Russell. What's the price? This is a free gift. This is a favor between fellow villagers, and Hasta did not say the second half of the sentence. Russell is still contaminated by the fallen mother goddess. If he wants to completely remove it, he must wait until he is promoted to sequence 0. So many things cannot be known to Russell, which is equivalent to telling the fallen mother goddess her own weaknesses. Okay, I believe you once. Russell did not hesitate. He reached into the void space and fumbled for a while, grabbing a sequence 1 Prince of Sequence Killing's extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness. He did not hesitate at all, and immediately devoured the extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness, and the power of the Black Emperor gradually returned to his body. When George III fell, one of the Sequence 1 Prince of Sequence Killing's extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness was secretly attracted by Russell and hidden, but he restrained his desire to devour this power. At that time, his body was still dominated by the fallen mother goddess, and he did not dare to devour this power, lest the fallen mother goddess further pollute the real world. The fallen mother goddess also knew his little thoughts, but deliberately did not point them out, so that he would think he was smart and actively devour this power. Now is the best time. Hasta also has a copy of the extraordinary characteristics of the Sequence 1 Prince of Order Killing that Russell needs, but he does not intend to give it to Russell. This copy of the extraordinary characteristics of the Prince of Order Killing can also help him advance to Sequence 1. As for Russell's thoughts at the moment, he also fully understands them. Russell wanted to take advantage of the time when the fallen mother goddess was unable to influence him, to re-enter the throne of the Black Emperor, and use the characteristics of the Black Emperor's resurrection to wash away the pollution of the fallen mother goddess. This was a path he had wanted to take but could not. When Russell was promoted to the Black Emperor, he was deliberately assassinated in order to cleanse himself of the contamination of the fallen mother goddess through subsequent resurrections. But when he was about to be resurrected, he found that the madness caused by his extraordinary characteristics had been completely eliminated, but the pollution of the fallen mother goddess still existed. As long as he dares to resurrect and return, the fallen mother goddess will be reborn directly in his body and completely occupy his body. So he could only stay in the Black Emperor's mausoleum and live half dead. Now, under the protection of the stars, with the fallen mother goddess unable to influence him, and with the extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness of Prince Murder, Russell plans to continue trying to walk this path. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta withdrew the power that helped Mr. Men wake up, converted it all into the purifying energy of the power of the sun mixed with the power of the stars, and poured it into Russell's body in the form of starlight. Help him eliminate and suppress the pollution from the fallen mother goddess to the greatest extent. When the aura of the Black Emperor on Russell became stronger and stronger, far away in Backland, the extraordinary characteristics of Prince Murder, which was treasured in the secret vault of the Lowen royal family, escaped from the control of the Lowen royal family and quickly came to the throne. Fly here to Russell. As for the other extraordinary characteristic of Prince Slaughter, it is being crushed by the Palace of Stars and cannot escape and fly away. The entire Black Emperor's mausoleum began to become turbulent as Russell's aura strengthened. But when the extraordinary characteristics of Prince Murder from the Lowen royal family flew into the mausoleum, and when Russell was about to successfully resurrect the Black Emperor and return, he suddenly stopped resurrecting him. Because even though the pollution of the fallen mother goddess has been suppressed to death, it still remains in his body, like the poison of his soul, he cannot get rid of it no matter what. The power from the protection of the stars can only be weakened, but cannot be completely eradicated. As long as the roots of the fallen mother goddess are still rooted in his body, sooner or later he will grow into a towering tree again. It seems that this road will never work. There was no overly disappointed expression on Russell's face, he was just slightly dazed before he returned to normal. This is enough. Russell smiled, and automatically separated the extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness of the Prince of Order in his body, turning them into 2 dark and twisted groups of light, which were placed side by side with the extraordinary characteristics of the Prince of Order that flew from Backland. Mid-air. If you look carefully, you can see that the only thing unique to the Black Emperor is a black crown, with a gem the size of a dove egg inlaid in the middle. Take it, this will allow you to cultivate a new Black Emperor. Russell waved his right hand and sent the things in front of him to the star container. During the resurrection process just now, he already knew that the last extraordinary characteristic of Prince Killer was in the hands of Kongxing. Combining the extraordinary characteristics and uniqueness of the two Prince Killer in front of him, all the extraordinary materials needed to be promoted to the Black Emperor were ready. As long as the corresponding ceremony is held, a new Black Emperor can be born. Russell said with a smile on his face, "The sea is so vast, if possible, it would not be a bad idea to establish a pirate kingdom." Hastur understood what Russell was thinking. He hoped to allow Bernadette to establish a kingdom belonging to pirates and hold the corresponding ceremony to be promoted to the Black Emperor. As a father, he still feels sorry for his daughter and hopes that his daughter will have enough strength to live freely. If you don't become a god, you are just a chess piece after all, and you will never have freedom. It's just that Russell gave this choice to Hastur. To be precise, he gave it to the stars. It is estimated that when the Black Emperor was resurrected and returned, he knew that his daughter Bernadette was already a believer in the stars. Since you can't get rid of this connection, let's make your daughter stronger. It's time for you to leave. Russell urged, walked to the Black Emperor's throne and sat down. He made several postures in a row and was not very satisfied. Finally, he took out a black broad-bladed sword, placed his hands on both sides of the hilt, held the blade in front of the throne, straightened his back, and looked straight ahead. After obtaining a satisfactory posture, Russell used his remaining strength to completely petrify and seal his body, connecting it with the entire Black Emperor's throne, becoming a cold statue. After this purification of the stars and the resurrection and baptism of the Black Emperor, he was able to withstand the pollution from the fallen Mother Goddess with a clear mind. Just like his initial entanglement with the fallen Mother Goddess. Huang Dao, a middle school student but responsible time traveler, although he did a lot of absurd things when he was young, he finally chose to be sealed here alone, like a monument silently sticking to it. The star container and the original hunger left the island that had changed due to Russell's brief awakening. The Black Emperor's distorted and chaotic rules enveloped the surroundings of the island, forming a black abyss barrier like a natural moat, guarding the peace here. At the same time, it also avoided the pirates who came for treasure, and contributed to the fallen Mother Goddess with his meager flesh and blood. Tonight is really interesting. Original Hunger smiled. Stars, I have to fill my stomach first. The star container just nodded lightly, and the Original Hunger stepped on the water on the sea, with a powerful brick flying effect, and soon disappeared. The star container stared quietly for a while, looking up at the starry sky that was not covered. The stars were shining, and the starlight that fell down was also protecting every believer of the stars. The series of changes tonight did not benefit the fallen Mother Goddess, but weakened her control over Russell. Mr. Men's consciousness also began to become active. In the next period of time, his influence on the real world will be greatly reduced. Are you a believer of the stars? While the star container was thinking, a submarine emerged from the water not far away. It was Bernadette who returned to this sea alone. The stars are my faith. The star container spoke calmly, glanced at Bernadette who was slightly relaxed, and flicked his finger lightly, showing Bernadette the clip of Russell regaining consciousness in the Black Emperor's mausoleum. Bernadette stared at it infatuatedly, with tears in her eyes, but she never let them flow out. When she heard the words, "The sea is so vast, if possible, it would be nice to build a pirate kingdom," she seemed to have found a new goal in life, and her eyes became bright and determined again. She was already known as the mysterious queen among the pirates. If she really raised her arms and called for the establishment of a pirate kingdom, it would not be too difficult to be a queen. Especially now, the major pirate groups suffered heavy losses due to the changes tonight, and it was the last opportunity for her to gather forces. The Storm Church had a good relationship with her, and the Kingdom of Loan was busy with the war with the Fasak Empire. All these conditions were complete. The only thing to worry about was the danger and madness that would be faced in the future when jumping to non-adjacent paths. But her father could do it, and so could she. When you build a kingdom belonging to pirates, these will be your gifts. I understand, I will offer my most sincere piety to the stars. Nastor, the king of the 5 seas, is a good helper. Originally, this was Hastur's backup plan for his possible promotion to the Black Emperor in the future, but now that he has jumped to the Star's path, he will let Bernadette complete this Black Emperor path instead of him. Then my father. The stars are always watching everything. The Star's container left this sentence and opened a door and disappeared. The sea was still full of blood, with only Bernadette and her Nautilus left. When Bernadette left when the sun was about to rise, Klein also left from the gray fog in the distant sea. He was just watching the big change that happened tonight from a distance, and he did not participate in it. Although he wanted to help Russell, the senior traverser, the situation Russell was facing was far beyond his ability to solve now. Fortunately, the stars were shining brightly tonight, dispelling the pollution from the depths of the starry sky. When he watched from a distance above the gray fog, the entire crimson moon seemed to be resurrected from the dead silence, and it emitted a terrifying wave that he dared not look directly at. The island's successive shocks caused the sea to be turbulent. Fortunately, the Black Emperor's aura was particularly strong at the end, which indicated that Russell's current situation was not bad and he was not really on the verge of despair. It's not easy to be a war correspondent. Klein sighed and rubbed his sore and swollen eyebrows with his right hand. He had to hold a tarot meeting tomorrow. Fortunately, this time he had a general understanding of what happened and would not be timid again. A new day has begun. The sun, which had been suppressed for a night, finally rose from the depths of the sea, and the golden light dispelled the coldness and darkness of last night. On the Black Emperor, Nast, the king of the five seas, was sending some food, water, and medical supplies from the ship to the Hope next door. Last night, he received instructions to come to the stars and came to this sea area to wait, and did not go to join the excitement of Russell's last mausoleum. At 2 or 3 o'clock in the middle of the night, a space portal suddenly appeared near the Black Emperor. On the other side of the portal, there was also a sea area, but there was a terrifying battle going on there. The black tentacles covering the sky, the blood-stained sea, and the blood-red tentacles extending from the depths of the seabed. And the crimson moon reflected on the sea. The atmosphere of terror was pervasive, and after a while, a ship slowly came to this sea area from the other side. Hope, a ship of neither size, all the ordinary crew members on the ship were blown apart, bloody and mangled. The remaining survivors were all covered in blood and looked pale, looking miserable as if they had just escaped death. He followed the instructions of the stars and began to provide assistance to the Hope. After finishing all this, he waited until dawn before boarding the Hope in person, waiting for the next instructions from the stars. In the room, Audrey, Furs, and Hugh were discussing the next countermeasures, while Susie was lying on the ground motionless. If I'm not mistaken, the fleet that helped us should be the fleet of the King of the Five Seas, Nast, and the flagship is the Black Emperor. Hugh trembled as he spoke the name of the King of the Five Seas, Nast. The bounty of this pirate king is higher than that of the undead King Agaritu. Why would he help us? It should be because of the relationship with the sage. Facing Audrey's inquiry, Hugh and Furs were not sure. Sage. It's the mysterious queen on the sea. After hearing this, Audrey looked at Furs deeply. Miss Furs, do you dare to say that you are not a magician lady? How is Mr. Osta's situation? I don't know, he hasn't responded. Will it be? Hugh slapped his crow mouth before he finished speaking. Knock, knock, knock. The door knocked, and Audrey and the others immediately became alert. Even Susie, who was lying on the ground recovering from her injuries through sleep, moved her ears slightly. It's me. Osta's voice came from outside the door, which made Audrey and the other two feel relieved. Hugh went forward to open the door. Seeing Asta, who was jumping around and wearing clean clothes, her eyes almost turned red. On this sea, Mr. Asta was their backbone. Asta walked into the room, looked around them and said, "Are you all okay?" Fortunately, Susie's condition is more serious. Audrey looked worried. Asta came to Susie, squatted down, and reached out to its head. A ray of purification energy of the sun's authority circulated through Susie's body. Susie soon opened her eyes and was in much better spirits than before. Susie. Audrey happily stroked Susie's head and looked at Asta and said, "Mr. Asta, is Susie okay now? Just take a rest." Asta stayed in the room and chatted with Audrey and others for a while, and Nast came to the bow deck of the Hope. Asta brought Hugh, who wanted to join in the fun, to the bow together, while Audrey stayed in the room to take care of Susie. As for Furs, she was simply too lazy to move. That was Nast, the king of the 5 seas. He was indeed a burly figure. Hugh curiously followed Asta and stole a few glances at the Pirate King. You did a good job on this matter. Asta's calm tone made Hugh's eyes widen a lot. This is the king of the 5 seas. Mr. Asta actually spoke in a manner similar to that of a superior. Are you also a believer in the stars? Nast frowned slightly. He had never seen this young earl. He had only seen 2 believers in the stars, one was Bernadette, and the other was the mysterious existence who forced him to surrender. I am the one favored by the stars. Favored? Nast was surprised, and Hugh sighed secretly. Mr. Asta was actually the one favored by the stars. No wonder he was completely different from himself and Furs. It turned out that he was the one favored by the stars, far more important than ordinary believers like them. You don't need to doubt it, the stars are watching everything. I'm not doubting it, I'm just curious. Nast quickly said that he didn't have that idea, but as far as he knew, even Bernadette was just an ordinary believer. Just when he thought of Bernadette, the surrounding space shook, and a pea vine took root and sprouted on the deck, which meant that Bernadette had also come here. Hello, Sage. Hugh saluted enthusiastically, this is a big shot. The follower of the stars. Bernadette just repeated it, and said with a slightly strange look, you are really special. Asta smiled, I became a believer and follower of the stars earlier than all of you. At the beginning of the birth of the stars, he was the representative of the stars and the only follower of the stars. In the eyes of the stars believers like Bernadette and Nast, the identity of the stars blessed is still very intimidating. Because this is the only stars blessed at present. Stars, are there any new instructions? It was Nast who asked. Haven't you always wanted to build a kingdom? Asta answered Nast's question, but his eyes were looking at Bernadette beside him. Bernadette said frankly, I want to create a pirate kingdom. You. Nast was surprised. Establish a country in the name of the Gustav family and Bernadette, the eldest daughter of Emperor Roussel. Nast was silent for a while before saying, this is a decision that can change the entire sea situation. Asta did not participate in the discussion of this issue. Wanting to establish a pirate kingdom is a problem that Bernadette and Nast need to worry about. And he currently has only one problem, which is to complete the role of the lost man of sequence 4 as soon as possible. In the afternoon, the tarot club was about to be held, and Furs locked himself in the house early, saying that he wanted to have a good rest. Audrey, who was taking care of Susie, also handed the task of taking care of Susie to Hastur. Facing Hastur's thoughtful gaze, Audrey pursed her lips tightly and did not explain the reason. When she closed the door, took a deep breath, and lay on the bed, waiting for Mr. Fool's call. In fact, she could buy time for herself to attend the tarot club in the name of going to the bathroom. But if the tarot club was held late today, her behavior of staying in the bathroom for a long time would be too embarrassing in front of Mr. Hastur. Above the gray fog, Klein held the tarot club on time. Mr. Fool, good afternoon. Mr. Hanged Man, good afternoon. Audrey began to greet as usual, and her eyes fell on the new member with a little surprise. It was a lady who looked full of intellectuality and wisdom. Ms. Hermit, she will also come to the tarot club regularly in the future. Mr. Fool, who was sitting at the head, just briefly introduced. Catalia looked around at everyone, stood up, saluted slightly, and then sat back in her seat. She was below Furs, silent but fierce, which made Furs a little overwhelmed. Now, except for Mr. Fool, the tarot club just happened to be a combination of 3 men and 3 women. I don't know if Mr. Fool chose people like this on purpose. Many thoughts flashed through Furs' mind, but on the surface, she had a stern face and looked calm. When Mr. Fool began to look through Roussel's diary, Catalia almost couldn't control the expression on her face. Judging from the normal attitude of others, Mr. Fool must know the special words left by Emperor Roussel, which is a word that even the Queen has never learned. Sure enough, Mr. Fool and the Tarot Club do have many secrets, but fortunately she has already sneaked in. When she thought about doing something for the Queen, she couldn't help but feel happy. After reading Roussel's diary and entering the free conversation session, Alger naturally mentioned the matter about Roussel's last Mausoleum Island. This time, Mr. Knox was not panicked at all. With a smile on his face, he watched the Tarot Club's discussion about the Russell incident with a detached attitude. It is suspected that a god descended that night, but the top leaders of the Church of the Storm avoided talking about it. Alger shared the information he had obtained. Regarding this matter, Audrey and Furs had a much better say than Alger. They were chased all the way. If it weren't for the mysterious existence that appeared and opened a space portal to keep the hope away from the dangerous sea, they would have been beaten into meat patties by the tentacles. And Alger was not on the ship of the Church of the Storm at that time. He was guarding on the outer periphery. When he found that the situation was not good, he quickly drove the ship away. The information he knew was all the information he found out from the people of the Church of the Storm afterwards. Just through Alger's simple narration, Catalia roughly guessed his real identity, an undercover sent by the Church of the Storm to the pirates. The gods were involved again. Emlyn and Derek had the same thought at the same time. Although they were still weak, the major events they encountered were basically related to the gods. Like this time, when they heard the news of the Lord of Storms descending, they didn't feel much. The Lord of Storms did descend that night, but it was the stars that turned the tide and solved the problem. It was the stars that shone and purified the pollution in the sea. Furs simply recounted what happened that night in a calm tone. This is a good opportunity to make the stars famous. How can we let the Lord of Storms take the limelight? Stars. Alger was silent, and Catalia looked at Furs curiously. In her eyes, this magician lady was only sequence 7. How could she know about the Lord of Storms and the stars? Which extraordinary force was behind her? Where did you get this information? Catalia asked tentatively. The information came from the mysterious queen on the sea. There is absolutely no mistake. Furs skillfully threw the blame to Bernadette. After all, everyone was a believer of the stars. The mysterious queen from the sea. Catalia's pupils dilated and her body froze. At this moment, she was very panicked. Even she hadn't received any news from the queen, so how did this magician know? What is her relationship with the queen? Is she the queen's spokesperson in Mr. Fool? Then what is she? Between her and herself, who is the queen's most trusted confidant? What infiltration, what eavesdropping, are not as important as this question at the moment. Her eyes looking at Furs became more and more complicated, so much so that she didn't have the heart to listen to Mr. Fool's summary speech clearly. Pollution comes from the starry sky. Now it was Furs' turn to panic. The eyes of the hermit lady seemed to want to see her completely from inside to outside. Did she recognize her real identity? Furs carefully recalled her speech today to see if there were any mistakes. Audrey looked at Furs and the hermit lady with interest. Their psychological activities were really exciting. After the Tarot Club ended, in the captain's room of the future, Catalia was uneasy, biting her red lips with her pearly teeth, and finally decided to write a letter to inform the queen that the fool knew how to interpret the special text of Emperor Russell. No matter who the queen has in her heart, there is only the queen in her heart. A few days later, the full moon massacre on Russell Island finally caused a sensation in the entire sea. At least dozens of well-known pirate groups were completely wiped out after that night. Most of the people who escaped by chance were contaminated by the fallen mother goddess, and death was their destination in the near future. When Bernadette wanted to take this opportunity to establish a pirate kingdom, new rumors emerged. Some survivors who escaped from the Full Moon Massacre said that it was the mysterious queen who teamed up with the Storm Church to deliberately set a trap and personally created the horrific incident of the Full Moon Massacre. Then someone secretly revealed the true identity of the mysterious queen. Bernadette Gustave, the eldest daughter of Russell Gustave. These pieces of news overlapped, and the entire sea was completely noisy. Such excitement and noise had nothing to do with Hasta and others. They just rested in a port for 2 days and then set off on the journey back to Punan port. As for the matters on the sea, Bernadette and Nast will handle them. If Bernadette is not capable of building a pirate kingdom, then let Nast do it. For the stars, it is not important who becomes the Black Emperor. What is important is that the new Black Emperor must be a believer of the stars. On the Hope, Zio was not interested and leaned against the guardrail in a daze. Furs dragged a lounge chair over, facing the cool sea breeze, flipping through the books in his hands from time to time, and occasionally tasting a glass of fresh fruit drink purchased from the port. The sick Susie finally regained her former liveliness. At this moment, she was lying not far from Furs, wearing the glasses given to her by Hastur, and was also flipping through the book. There was also a small bowl of fresh fruit drink like Furs next to her. Audrey, who was chatting with Hastur, was not very interested either. She also wanted to see other interesting places and experience a different adventurous life. If she returns to Punan Port this time, she should return to Backland. Have you heard the story of the people in the city and outside the city? No, is this a famous folk story? Audrey was a little interested. Hastur saw her thoughts and slightly adapted the story of the besieged city, telling the core purpose that the people in the city want to get out and the people outside the city want to get in. What an excellent and wise story. Audrey recognized the wonderfulness of this story, and said with a light in her eyes, if I were to evaluate, both of these people are right, they just yearn for a world they have never experienced. Mr. Hastur, have you ever yearned for a different life? Audrey threw the question back. Hastur chuckled and said, tell me, which legendary treasure do you want to find? The slightly helpless and doting tone made Audrey blush slightly, and she wanted to stick out her tongue proudly, and her mood suddenly became relaxed and happy again. I think, go find the real fountain of youth. Fortunately, Audrey didn't say she was going to look for the fountain of immortality. The fountain of youth, eternal youth, is indeed an irresistible temptation for girls. When Zio and Furs heard the conversation, their eyes lit up. They looked calm on the surface, but their ears were already pointed, so as not to miss the important conversation. I can't guarantee that I can find the fountain of youth. I believe in Mr. Asta. Audrey's face was full of smiles. We also believe in Mr. Asta. Shu and Furs also followed suit, and even Susie barked. Mr. Asta, you are now highly anticipated. Audrey's tone was a little playful, and she was particularly cute. Seeing that they were all interested in the fountain of youth, Asta organized his words a little and told them about the legend of the fountain of youth. The legend of the Fountain of Youth was first spread by the immortal King Agaritu in order to use the greedy pirates to refine the real Fountain of Youth with their lives. As for whether there is a real Fountain of Youth in the sea, Hastur is not sure, but if it exists, it should be in the Sea of Ruins where the ancient sun god fell. There is the most abundant source of life in this sea. Last time, he went to the Sea of Ruins with the star container and entered the god-forsaken land. He did notice that there was a place with a rich breath of life, but he did not go there to explore at that time. The Fountain of Youth is of no use to him. Generally, after being promoted to sequence 2 Earth Angels, there is basically no need to worry about such lifespan issues, and keeping a young and beautiful appearance is even easier. Finding the Fountain of Youth is more to satisfy Audrey and others' fantasy of beautiful fairy tales. After a brief discussion, the Hope turned the bow and headed towards the Sea of Ruins. At night, it was silent. Hastur opened a travel portal in Audrey's room. Audrey naturally put her hands around Hastur's left arm and followed him into the travel portal. As for Susie, she stayed in the room with an unhappy face. Gold Harbor, named because the sunset glow in the evening is like flowing gold. Late at night, the crimson moon here is reflected on the sea surface, and when it shines on the corals in the shallow sea area, it will emit colorful light, which is also a very worthwhile view. So beautiful. Audrey simply admired the beauty in front of her eyes. The dreamy brilliance fell on her body, like a cloud dress. When the waves splashed, the light was crushed and spread into another color of broken light. It was late at night, and there was no one else around. Audrey rolled up her skirt, squatted down, picked up a star-shaped shell, and looked at a better-looking shell on the other side, Mr. Asta. Asta understood and walked over to help her pick up the shells on the beach. After picking up a small handful, Audrey said with satisfaction, "This is a gift from the sea." Asta found a small wooden box, cleaned the shells Audrey found and collected them. After doing these, the two walked on the beach, looking at the still brightly lit golden harbor not far away, and talking about some mysterious legends about the sea. "Mr. Hastur, do mermaids really exist in the deep sea?" Yes. Hastur was sure of this question. After all, when Klein was promoted to the Master of Secret Dolls, he needed to take the potion while listening to the mermaids singing to be promoted. Are they really as beautiful as in fairy tales? Probably not. Mr. Hastur, have you never seen a mermaid? I've only heard that they do have moving singing voices. I really want to go and listen to them. Audrey's eyes showed a yearning look. There will be a chance. Calculating the time, Klein should have digested the Faceless Man potion. Maybe he has been looking for the mermaids singing recently in order to be promoted to the Master of Secret Dolls. Really? Well, it's more real than the pearls in the deep sea. Hastur added. Miss Audrey's expectant eyes are always irresistible. Mr. Hastur. Audrey deliberately lengthened her voice to cover up her inner joy. When Klein painted a mysterious symbol that combined secrecy and voyeurism on the full-length mirror in the bedroom. The full-length mirror emitted a dim but pure light, as if it was an undercurrent quietly surging at the bottom of a lake. Then, rows of salutes appeared inside, firing fireworks into the sky. Gold, silver, red and other fireworks fragments formed a group of words in the air. Great Master, your most loyal servant Aristide has finally followed your steps again. Tisk, it's really enthusiastic, and you can come up with a lot of new tricks every time. Klein nodded slightly, but didn't speak. Great Master, do you have any instructions? I have a question that needs your answer. It's my greatest honor to be able to help the Master. After this sentence, a little man dancing happily appeared. I want to know where I can find the mermaid's song. Klein asked the problem that he needed to solve most at the moment. His Faceless Man potion has been completely digested, and he has gathered all the extraordinary materials needed to be promoted to the Master of Secret Puppets. Now he just needs this last step. To become a puppet master, one must take a potion while listening to the mermaid's song, and mermaids are said to be on the verge of extinction. The easiest place to find mermaids is in the sea near the Tranquility Church, the headquarters of the Church of the Night Goddess. There are mermaids specially raised by the Church of the Night Goddess. But I don't think the owner would choose this place. If you want to find wild mermaids on the sea, you need to go to the sea near the Sea of Ruins to search. Master must remember not to go too deep into the Sea of Ruins. It is very dangerous and contains many unknown secrets. Klein silently watched the answer from Asrad, thinking about how to get to the Sea of Ruins. Mr. Hanged Man's Blue Avenger is a good choice, or Captain Danitz's Golden Dream. I just don't know if they have any plans to set off to that sea area recently. How to get to the Sea of Ruins more safely and quickly? Klein asked this question to Arust to solve. This question seemed to trouble Arust. After a while, he wrote in a significantly darker style. The day after tomorrow in the evening, a hope will pass here. This is currently the safest ship to pass through the Sea of Ruins. Quote. Hope. Klein frowned slightly. Why had he not heard of this ship that appeared from nowhere? Great Master, I can only provide you with corresponding suggestions. You have to make up your own mind on how to act. Master, your loyal servant looks forward to your next service. All the light in the full-length mirror disappeared, and Arostid had left. Klein thought for a while in the room and decided to wait for 2 days to see the specific situation of the Hope. 2 days later in the evening, Klein saw the Hope ship near the port as he had hoped, coming here to replenish supplies and water resources. The corners of his mouth twitched a few times, and he wanted to turn around and leave now, pretending that he had not come here today. The only good thing is that he changed his appearance. He is neither Klein nor Gehrman, but a new identity. But he was not sure whether Mr. Hastur, who appeared in front of him after getting off the Hope, could still see his disguised identity at a glance. The last time I appeared in Elaine's female form, the embarrassing scene of being bumped into by Asta is still vivid in my mind. Who knows what will happen this time? He was about to turn around and leave before Mr. Hastur noticed him, but after taking a few steps, a familiar voice came from behind him. There was no need to look back. He had already recognized that the owner of this voice was Hastur, whom he wanted to avoid. Sir, I heard that you are looking for the legendary mermaid. Quote. Klein froze for a while, took a deep breath, then turned around and spoke as calmly as possible. I am a researcher of natural organisms. I am very interested in the legendary mermaids on the sea. I am looking for a suitable ship to escort me. I went to sea to look for it. So that's it. Asta nodded and said with a smile, we are also ready to set out to search. If you are willing to pay a considerable reward, we are willing to carry another person. How much payment do you need? 1,000 gold pounds, that's a very reasonable price. Too expensive. This is simply trying to steal money. Klein wanted to turn around and leave, but the other party's hope was currently the safest ship to pass through the Sea of Ruins. Moreover, the other party has probably guessed his identity, otherwise he would not directly invite a stranger to board the ship and go out to sea to find some mermaid. It's a big expense and I need to think about it. Klein really thinks it's too expensive. He worked hard hunting pirates, and part of the money he earned was used to pay off the courier lady's debt, and most of it was used to buy extraordinary materials. He was really not that rich. After all, he is not the righteous young lady from the tarot club who spends money like water. In front of the harbor, Hasta looked at Klein, who had obviously changed his appearance, and continued to speak seductively. "Mr. Natural Biologist, the Sea of Ruins is very dangerous. If you are not careful, the ship will be destroyed. Death, the danger there is worth 1,000 gold pounds." Klein was silent for a while and said, "I don't have that much money on me right now. I trust your character very much. You can write an IOU first and cash it later." It doesn't matter whether it's money or not, Hasta mainly enjoys the pleasure of earning gold pounds from Klein. All right. Klein finally agreed and even said the words, IOU. He must have known his hidden identity. On the sea, trust is very valuable. Now that his identity was revealed, he stopped being so coy. After following Hasta to purchase some supplies, we boarded the Hope. This ship can only be regarded as a medium-sized ship, one size smaller than a flagship like the Golden Dream. On the boat, he met the blonde aristocratic girl Miss Audrey again. Through subtle observations during the tarot session, he was basically certain that Miss Audrey was Miss Justice. Because Miss Justice, who originally lived in Backland, obviously came to the sea during this period, which coincided with the trajectory of Miss Audrey. Especially when seeing Susie, there is no suspense about Miss Justice's real identity. When he saw 4C and Zio, he was stunned for a moment, then secretly took a peek at their heights, and then focused on 4C as the main object of observation. This Ms. Furs is very similar to Ms. Magic, both in body shape and personality. It turns out that Miss Justice and Miss Magic are acquaintances in reality. No wonder the interaction between the two was a little different during the Tarot Club. This is a natural biologist who wants to go to sea to find mermaids, Mr. Wilson. He is also from Backland and Lowen. Hasta gave Klein a brief introduction to his new identity. Natural biologist, has Mr. Wilson been to many places? Zio asked with a slight frown. For some reason just now, she felt an uncomfortable-looking look from Mr. Wilson. I just left Lowen not long ago. I only wandered around the nearby sea area. There are also many places I haven't set foot in. In order to play his new identity well, Klein taught Zio, 4C and others a lot about the strange creatures in the sea. For example, a sea creature that can support a group of people living normally in its belly, a giant storm eagle that can destroy a ship, etc. Audrey observed silently for a while. This man felt a bit like Mr. World to her. 4C was also secretly sizing up Mr. Wilson, trying to guess his true origin. She didn't think Mr. Hasta would let an ordinary natural biologist board the Hope. Susie also hid in the shadows and observed all this. As the instigator, Hasta watched this scene quietly, always feeling like he was in a spy movie. Speaking of which, 4C is indeed a spy. Ah, the wind is coming. Although a group of people have their own unknown thoughts, they are still very harmonious on the surface. At night, Zio and 4C started talking about the new Mr. Wilson in the room. Zio said with determination, I'm sure he is not just a natural biologist. Then go and investigate his true identity. 4C naturally handed over this task to Zio. Aren't you curious at all? I just trust Mr. Hasta. This was a good reason for laziness, and Zio had nothing to say. On the other side, inside Audrey and Susie's room. Susie, who was lying under the bed, lowered her voice and said, Audrey, Mr. Wilson has secretly observed you many times today, as if to confirm something. He's watching me secretly. Yes, he also peeked at Ms. Furs several times. Susie naturally told what she had observed today, he seems to know you. That's it. Audrey also understood in her heart and smiled. Susie, you did a good job in this matter. She knew no one else at sea, and had never seen Mr. Wilson before. If he knew himself and 4C at the same time, then he must be a member of the Tarot Society. Little Son is still in Silver City, and Mr. Vampire has no idea of disguising himself. Mr. Hanged Man's identity should be the leader of a pirate group. Only the mysterious Mr. World fits the bill. Mr. Wilson is Mr. World, or more accurately, he is a disguised identity of Mr. World. Speaking of which, I had fed Mr. World many times before. It's so interesting to meet members of the Tarot Club by chance in the real world. I don't know if I can meet Mr. Hanged Man, who is also adventuring in the sea. There is also the recently joined Hermit Lady, who seems to be at sea as well. At around 11 o'clock at night, in Klein's room, he also did not fall asleep. Instead, he sat in front of the desk and found a mirror. What happened today almost caught him off guard. He really didn't want to meet the mysterious Mr. Hasta again. Every time he met him, nothing good seemed to happen, especially after he came to the sea. First, he met Hasta disguised as the King in Yellow, then he met the real Hasta when he was dressed as Elaine, and today he owed an IOU of 1,000 gold pounds. Fortunately, meeting Miss Justice and Miss Magician was also a pleasant surprise. After thinking about what happened today, Klein looked at himself in the mirror. The person in the mirror was obviously nothing like his original self. He was a completely different person, but why was he still easily seen through by Hasta? Did the extraordinary ability of the faceless man not exist in his eyes? Klein sighed, got up and returned to bed. Although the bed was very soft, he was not sleepy at all. Late at night, Audrey was also lying on the bed and couldn't fall asleep. In the past, at this time, Mr. Hasta would take her out through the travel door to experience a different adventurous life, but tonight, Mr. Hasta seemed to have broken his promise. Is it because you don't want to be noticed by Mr. World? Susie, are you asleep? Audrey, you know I'm always very energetic at night. Please help me go to Mr. Hasta's room. After saying this, Audrey gently covered her slightly hot cheeks with the quilt. Audrey, if you like someone, you must face it bravely and act decisively. Hesitation will only lead to failure. Susie, what books have you been reading recently? This is what I learned from the quotations of Emperor Russell a long time ago. Audrey no longer knew what kind of mood she should use to face Susie, who was educating her emotionally. Audrey, going out on an adventure is one of the few opportunities for you and Mr. Hasta to be alone. Once the adventure is over, you will return to Backland, but only Miss Sharon will be left to accompany Mr. Hasta. Susie stood up, her eyes sharp and her emotions excited, as if she was going to continue to discuss this issue. Susie, I finally know where the term, dog-headed military advisor, came from. This time, it was Susie's turn to fall silent. She walked out of the room and headed for the room where Asta was resting. Woof woof woof. Susie just stood at the door and barked a few times. She believed that Mr. Asta would understand what she meant. This was the tacit understanding of mutual trust between her and Mr. Asta. After a while, a portal with ripples in space appeared out of thin air in Audrey's room. Asta didn't want to go out tonight, because such a breath fluctuation could not be hidden from the spiritually sensitive Klein. But Susie came outside the room and called him, so he no longer worried that Klein would discover this little detail. When Asta appeared in the room, Audrey pulled the quilt to cover her flushed cheeks, lying on her side with her back to Asta. After recovering a little, she lifted the quilt and looked at Asta, who was covered by the dots of light from the space portal, with a natural expression. Then she walked over and naturally put her arm around Asta's left arm as usual. But this time, his mood was much more strange than before. He lowered his head slightly, secretly blaming Susie for saying too many messy things tonight. When the two of them left through the travel portal, Klein, who had not yet fallen asleep, did keenly capture this slight spatial fluctuation. But he did not get up to check, just turned over and continued to be unable to sleep. Mr. Asta, did Susie say anything to you just now? Audrey and Asta strolled on the street late at night. Several street lights lit up at the corner of the street, emitting a dim light, hazy and blurred. Asta did not answer this question, but just walked closer, gently took Audrey's hand, and held it in his palm. Mr. Asta, you. The sudden intimate action made Audrey's body stiffen slightly, her steps stopped, and her heartbeat accelerated suddenly. What made her even more flustered was, what did Susie say to Mr. Asta just now? Will Susie tell Mr. Hasta all her worries? It is very possible that Susie tonight is obviously more passionate about being a teacher than usual. What he said about the dog-headed military advisor, shouldn't it have misunderstood anything? So it decided to help itself make a choice and take a step forward? The more Audrey thought about it, the more she felt that this was a possibility. At this moment, her little hand held by Mr. Hasta was as hot as fire. It's warm, especially on such a cold night. But she didn't withdraw her little hand, she just stayed silent for a while, then raised her head and looked at Asta beside her, with a smile on her face and said, "Mr. Asta, holding hands is a lifetime thing." When the sun rose in the morning, Audrey, who had returned from her travels, placed a box of fried fish nuggets specially purchased in front of Susie as a midnight snack. Audrey knelt down and gently reached out to stroke its head. "Susie, thank you for what you said to Mr. Hasta for me tonight." Susie, who was tasting fried fish nuggets, had 3 big question marks on her forehead. Did it communicate anything with Mr. Hasta tonight? Woof woof woof. Could it be that Mr. Hasta understood something extraordinary from these 3 barks? However, I clearly just reminded Mr. Hasta that Audrey had something to talk to him about, and didn't say anything else. Because in the quotations of Emperor Russell, it is clearly stated, "Emotions are a matter between 2 people, and no one else should or can rashly interfere in it." It strictly implements what Emperor Russell said and will not do thankless things. "Susie, if it weren't for you, I might really end the adventure with a little disappointment and return to Backland." Audrey spoke softly and her eyes were particularly gentle. "Susie, thank you for staying with me. Be there to help me solve my problems." Susie was stunned for a few seconds and thought seriously for a moment, but she still couldn't figure out Audrey's change in attitude. "Forget it, there are delicious fish nuggets to eat anyway." After chatting with Susie for a few words, Audrey went back to her bed and lay down. She pulled the quilt to cover her cheeks and raised the corners of her mouth slightly. She couldn't stop thinking about how she and Asta were holding hands on the road tonight. In people's envious eyes, they looked like a couple walking freely through the late-night streets. Eating late-night street snacks, watching early morning workers moving port cargo overnight, and occasionally chatting with nearby diners about recent events on the sea. Then stroll along the path near the beach and watch the night gradually give way to the morning light. Sometimes, even though the difference is only 1 step, but that step has not been taken, after all, it is 2 different experiences. Holding hands is a lifelong matter. "Audrey, this must be the bravest thing you have ever done in your life." Audrey whispered softly, originally wanting to catch up on her sleep, but there was a knock on the door. "I have always liked to get up early and can't rest." "Good morning, Ms. Hugh." Audrey opened the door with a bright smile on her face. "Good morning, Miss Audrey." Zio was stunned for a moment and said in confusion, "I always feel that Miss Audrey's smile is particularly joyful today." "Just today." Audrey deliberately kept a small face, which made Zio quickly explain, "Of course not, Miss Audrey is very beautiful every day, and your smile is enough to cure all unhappy things." "Thank you for your compliments. Miss Hugh is also very lovely." After being praised, Zio smiled sheepishly, and then invited Audrey to have breakfast together. For C, the guy who stayed in bed, would wait a while before getting out of bed. "Good morning, Miss Audrey." "Good morning, Ms. Hugh." Klein, who also came out for breakfast, naturally greeted Audrey and Zio. His eyes lingered on Audrey for a moment. If he had sensed correctly last night, the spatial fluctuations should have come from Miss Audrey's room. Last night, someone went out with Miss Audrey. The 3 of them sat down, and 4C appeared with a yawn. After a while, Susie followed Asta and slowly came to the dining table. Asta sat next to Audrey, briefly exchanged greetings with everyone, and then naturally stretched out his hand to peel shrimps for Audrey. During this time on the boat, what Audrey liked the most was the boiled shrimp. It didn't require too much seasoning or cooking. The shrimp was fresh enough and tasted very sweet. When peeling shrimps, it's easy to get her hands dirty, which is not elegant, so she basically just tastes a few. Forsea and Zio looked at each other, as if they saw something from this small gesture, and looked at Audrey with meaningful eyes. Audrey looked calm as she elegantly ate the shrimp peeled by Asta for her along with this morning's seafood porridge. Seeing that Audrey had no reaction, Furs deliberately held Zio's arm and said coquettishly to her, "Zio, can you peel a shrimp for me too?" Zio stretched out her finger and gently touched the tip of Forsea's nose, and said dotingly, "Okay, just wait patiently." At this time, Audrey's cheeks finally turned red and her eyelashes trembled slightly. It was difficult to maintain a calm expression, but she still tried her best to remain calm and silently tasted the feeding from Hasta. After Forsea imitated Audrey and ate 2 shrimps, he glanced at Audrey and Asta, his little eyes rolled, and he continued to coquettishly say, "Hugh, I want you to feed me with your own hands." "As you command, my beloved Miss Furs." With a smile on his face, Zio peeled the shrimp, pinched the tail of the shrimp, and handed the white and translucent shrimp meat to Forsea's mouth. Forsea took a bite slowly, and after tasting it, he deliberately looked at Audrey opposite. Under her gaze, the blush on Audrey's perfect face had expanded into a patch, vaguely spreading towards her ears. Forsea suppressed the smile in his heart and deliberately shyly said to Zio, "Zio, it's great to have you by my side." Faced with Forsea and Zio's teasing, the blush on Audrey's face spread a lot. She glanced at Asta and saw that he had a smile in his eyes and was admiring her blushing face due to Forsea and Zio's teasing. Cheeks, she couldn't help but give him a cute look. But soon, the blush on her face gradually dissipated, she raised her head, glanced at Forsea and Zio, her eyes fell on Asta, and smiled. "Mr. Asta, it's great to have you by my side." As soon as such words like a confession came out, Forsea and Zio were stunned at the same time. A burst of emotion arose in my heart at the same time. She is indeed Miss Audrey, she can be so calm and brave even in such emotional matters. They were deliberately playing tricks just now, just to tease Miss Audrey, but unexpectedly, they were fed a mouthful of dog food. When Forsea and Zio looked at each other, Audrey, who had already controlled her inner emotions, naturally put a piece of freshly grilled fish on Asta's plate and poured Asta a cup of hot milk. Such a calm and affectionate display full of dog food. Forsea and Zio couldn't help but burp. Today's breakfast is a bit full. Forsea and Zio couldn't hold it any longer, so they both lowered their heads and ate the breakfast on their plates. As for Klein, who was sitting a little further away, he just glanced at it because it was interesting and then focused on enjoying the food. Judging from today's sumptuous breakfast and the handling of various seafood ingredients, he was certain that there must be a chef on this ship who was very good at cooking food. This next part of the journey will be a blessing for me. After breakfast, Forsea and Zio went to the bow deck for activities, while Klein went to the stern. Audrey walked silently to Hasta, who was looking at the scenery outside through the window. He stretched out his hand and pinched his waist, slightly pursed his thin lips and said, "Was Mr. Asta secretly happy just now?" Asta held Audrey's little hand with his backhand, and put his other hand around her waist, gently hugging her into his arms. Now that the showdown has been made, there is no need to worry about anything anymore. "Mr. Hasta." Audrey looked around with a slightly red cheek, and found that no one was there, so she snuggled into Hasta's arms with peace of mind. "Before going to sea, your father, Earl Hall, once wrote me a letter." What was written in the letter? Audrey had a premonition that something was wrong. Her voice was slightly trembling. "He asked me how long he wants you to wait." "Ah?" Audrey's mouth opened slightly, her eyes widened, and the red glow that had been suppressed for a short time climbed up her cheeks again. "He also asked me when I would go to Backland to make an engagement with you." Audrey waited for a long time before speaking in a low voice. "Really? I think that's what he said in the letter, Mr. Hasta." Audrey raised her head in shame. She finally understood that these words were made up by Hasta himself. How could her father speak so straightforwardly? Moreover, he fully respects his own choices and will never interfere in his emotional affairs so rashly. Seeing Audrey's angry little expression, Hasta just smiled and lowered his head and kissed her on the forehead. Forsea and Shu, who were at the bow of the ship, saw that Audrey and Asta had not come out of the cabin yet, and were planning to take a sneak peek. Susie, who was lying at the entrance of the cabin, just raised her head slightly, glanced at them, and told them to give up the idea. Miss Audrey is finally with Mr. Hasta, Forsey said with emotion. She was sincerely happy for Miss Audrey. This development was in line with the story written in her novel. After shared adventures, the relationship heats up rapidly, the confession comes naturally, and we let nature take its course. But wouldn't Miss Sharon really become a supporting character in the novel? No, Miss Sharon's home was directly stolen. What's wrong? Seeing Furs suddenly look shocked, Shu came over and asked curiously. Nothing, I just suddenly thought of an important thing. What is it? Why are Miss Audrey and Mr. Asta progressing so fast? I'm curious too. Woof, Susie came over and joined the topic they were discussing very naturally. Susie, do you think this matter has something to do with you? Woof. Wow, Susie, you are so awesome. After Furs praised Susie, she said with a bad taste. Susie, can you help Shu find a suitable partner? Furs, you bastard. Shu quickly stood on tiptoe, reached out to cover Furs' mouth, and muttered. Don't instill bad ideas into Susie. Susie just looked Shu up and down, then shook her head silently, and went back to the cabin entrance to lie down. Shu was speechless by Susie's reaction. What does this mean? Furs covered her mouth and laughed secretly, and even secretly gave Susie a thumbs up. Furs, you must have taught Susie a bad lesson. Shu could only vent his frustration and anger on Furs. Looking at Furs and Shu who were already playing, Susie secretly glanced at them, then shook her head and sighed silently. After a few days of getting along, Klein successfully integrated into the life of the Hope. Every day when he had nothing to do, he came to the stern and observed the nearby creatures through a telescope, and sometimes even took notes with a pen and paper. If he didn't know Klein's true identity, Hasta might have thought he was really a natural biologist. This time, the reason why he could easily see through Klein's faceless disguise was entirely because of Arosty. When it mentioned the Hope, it took a peek and was noticed by himself, and then followed the clues and quickly locked onto Klein. When can we see mermaids? After crossing this sea area, we can reach the outer area of the Sea of Ruins. Mermaids usually live a little further inside. Asta introduced some relevant information to Klein. While the two were chatting, two ships appeared on the sea in the distance, moving at high speed. The ships were not heading for the Hope, they were avoiding the pursuit from behind. The pirate group of the undead King Agaritu. After seeing the flag flying on the ship, Klein frowned subconsciously, but soon relaxed again. This Mr. Asta received a reward of 1,000 gold pounds from him, so he didn't need to worry about this problem. Don't worry about them. Asta's indifferent tone made Klein curious. That's the pirate group of the undead King. Don't we need to make some preparations in advance? Mr. Wilson, they are the ones who should make preparations in advance. Soon, Klein understood the meaning of Asta's words. The death announcement, which had just appeared in the distant sea, seemed to have sensed some danger and quickly turned its bow to leave the sea area. The extraordinary people of the demonic path are very sharp in sensing danger. Agaritu on the death announcement was in great panic when he just glanced at the Hope from a distance. And he still remembers this Hope. It was this ship that attracted the attention of those huge black tentacles during the bloody night of the full moon in the waters near Rissell Island. In the chaotic battle, it finally left safely. The aura exuded by the mysterious strong man standing on the bow was enough to easily kill a small character like him. The reason why he can be called the King of Immortality is that he will not do things that will lead to his own death. Following the voice deep in his heart is the secret of his longevity. 2 days later, the Hope arrived at the periphery of the Sea of Ruins. The ocean with golden ripples formed two different worlds with the surrounding deep blue sea. It seemed to be full of divinity and light, and the vast epic feeling came from the black ruins rising from the sea. But before reaching that golden world, we still need to overcome the last natural barrier. In the sea ahead, the blue sea is cut off by a crack here, and the endless seawater is like a waterfall, rushing vertically down into the bottomless dark world. Everyone, be careful, hold on to the solid things around you, so as not to be accidentally overturned later. Asta, who was standing at the bow, reminded Audrey and others to stay in the cabin first and come out after crossing the sea area. Crash! The Hope was affected by the rapid surge of the seawater in front, and its speed was several times faster than before. The whole Hope shook slightly, and Audrey looked at Asta, who was still outside, and only had time to say, "Mr. Asta, be careful." When the Hope arrived at the crack in the sea surface, due to the influence of gravity, the hull fell straight down. When the things in the cabin were about to flip, a gentle force lifted the Hope, allowing the vertically downward hull to return to a stable posture of moving forward. Under the astonished gaze of Audrey and the others, the entire Hope was like an airship, flying over the cracks and faults, over the bottomless abyss, and arriving at the golden sea ahead. The ship landed steadily, and except for the liquid splashing out of the cups and dishes, everything else stayed quietly in its original place. After feeling that the Hope was sailing normally, Audrey and her group came out of the cabin and came to the bow to embrace the world of the golden ocean. There are no clouds here, and there is no sun in the sky, but there is sunshine everywhere, dyeing the whole world in front of them golden. It's so beautiful, just like a golden sun is crushed and mixed in here. Standing next to Hasta and admiring the scenery in front of her, Audrey sighed sincerely. Miss Audrey's adjective is really appropriate. Why can't I think of such a good word of praise? I can only say, it's beautiful, it's really beautiful. Zio spoke silently. I told you to read more books, but you just don't listen, Furs habitually said. Huh, you read so many books, but I haven't seen you write such a gorgeous article. Furs was silent. After admiring for a while, Klein said with a worried look, the more beautiful the scenery on the sea, the more likely it is to hide unknown dangers. Mr. Wilson, do you know about this Sea of Ruins? Zio asked. I have only heard other people talk about the terrible legends about this place. Klein naturally shared the news he had heard, and at the same time he was reminding Hasta that this place was very dangerous and he needed to be extra careful. He then pointed to the ruins ahead. Most of the main body of the ruins was submerged by the sea. Above the sea level were gray stones and stone pillars piled up into peaks, with a dome-like round object on top, supporting a large space. As for the lower part of the ruins, it extended to the depths of the sea, and the end could not be seen at a glance. Be careful of the whispers here, don't listen too much, Hasta just gave a simple reminder. The Sea of Ruins is indeed very dangerous, but they have been here once before. Apart from the whispers, other places are just a novel experience for everyone on the Hope. The Hope sailed steadily past the ruins ahead. Although it was very close, no one suggested going into the ruins to search for treasure. When they were about to have lunch, the originally golden sky suddenly dimmed, and the surroundings fell into darkness. The night fell quietly and silently. This is because the two greatest forces that affect this place come from the ancient sun god and the goddess of night. The golden daytime is the majority, but the night will come from time to time. The sudden reversal of day and night made Furs and others exclaim. But soon, the Hope was surrounded by a layer of hazy starlight, illuminating the entire Hope. The power from the stars. Klein, who saw this scene, was moved and pretended to glance at Hasta casually. Now he has a little understanding of Mr. Hasta's background. It turns out that he is a believer of the stars. It's late at night. It's time to go back to the room to sleep, and then wait to wake up naturally tomorrow. Hasta's voice accurately reached everyone's ears. Zio asked curiously, what will happen if you don't sleep? When we wake up, we will find that you have disappeared and will never be found again. Zio was frightened and quickly pulled Furs back to the room to rest. In such a mysterious night, someone must accompany you to sleep. Klein followed the arrangement and returned to his room to rest. Mr. Hasta, have you been here before? When the two were alone, Audrey asked more directly. I have been here once. Seeing that Audrey seemed to be hesitant to speak, Hasta thought about it for a while, and then whispered in Audrey's ear. I'm not looking forward to it. Audrey stuttered a little after saying this, and then led Susie back to her room. Late at night, when everyone was dreaming, an uninvited guest passed through the dark world and came to the deck of the Bow of the Hope. The stupid snake in Will's mouth, the angel of destiny Ouroboros. At the beginning, he was tricked by the star container from Backland back to the forsaken land of God, and now he sensed the familiar breath of the star container again. With the arrival of Aurelus, Hasta could only come here as a vessel of the stars. If Aurelus suddenly went crazy and hit the Hope, Audrey and the others would really not be able to wake up from their dreams. You lied to me. Quote. Asta almost couldn't hold back when Aurelius said the first sentence. How did he make himself look like a heartless man who betrayed his feelings? I just helped him a little bit. Hasta continued, even if I didn't help him, you still couldn't find him. This is between him and me. I don't want it to happen again, even if you are a believer of the stars. The expression on Aurelius' face did not change, but he said it very seriously. You came here tonight just for this. Hasta just calmly changed the subject. Aurelius just looked at him deeply, then shifted his gaze and looked at the cabin. After carefully sensing for a while, he did not find any special breath. Let the one from the Forsaken Land leave. I don't want him to disturb the Lord's peace. He just wants to play hide and seek with Aemon. If he's having fun, he'll leave naturally. Asta naturally understood that the he in Ouroboros's words referred to the high-dimensional overlooker. But he had no interest in participating in the game between the high-dimensional overlooker and Aemon. It's very simple to let the high-dimensional overlooker leave the Forsaken Land, as long as Aemon is willing to leave. I believe Ouroboros will understand how to act. What really concerned Asta was whether it was Ouroboros's own idea to let the high-dimensional overlooker leave the Forsaken Land, or was it the instruction from the real creator. Ouroboros did not continue the topic, but suddenly brought up the war between the Faesac Empire and the Kingdom of Loan. From the meaning behind Ouroboros's words, there might be new changes there. Ouroboros did not say the details directly, but just said, don't let the pollution of the starry sky further erode the real world. This was said to the stars, meaning that there were outer gods outside the starry sky who participated in the war between the Faesac Empire and the Kingdom of Loan in the past. After sending Ouroboros away, Hasta asked the star container to stay on the Hope tonight to prevent Ouroboros from coming back. In the Hall of Stars, Hasta's eyes swept across the starry sky above his head. The lamp god, the mother tree of desire, the superstar overlord, the high-dimensional overlooker, and the original hunger did not have any suspicious movements, and their activities were not in the Faesac Empire. Then the changes Ouroboros mentioned should be the work of the fallen Mother Goddess and her allies. It is currently known that there is a fate ring in the fallen Mother Goddess's camp. The sudden increase in the power of the fallen Mother Goddess during the Russell Mausoleum incident was caused by the fate ring using its authority to help the fallen Mother Goddess borrow the power of her complete period. The rich breath of destiny was clearly captured by the Hall of Stars. However, he had deliberately ignored the Ring of Fate, and it was normal for him to be united with the fallen Mother Goddess now. Hasta's eyes passed over the Mother Tree of Desire and other existences, and looked at other stars that had not yet fully lit up. Among these stars, there might be outer gods that he did not know. For example, the outer gods that came from the distant starry sky, such as the King in Yellow. Unfortunately, his current strength was insufficient, and he could only light up a little bit along the outer periphery of the initial barrier, and could not completely light up the entire starry sky. Hasta observed for a while, then left the Hall of Stars, entered the Dreamland, and came to the common dream world. Soon, he found where Audrey was, which was a fairy tale forest that she had imagined herself. There were bushes without thorns, tall and colorful mushrooms, and tree houses that could be lived in were carved out of the trunks of several towering trees, and clusters of flowers were whispering to each other. As the owner of the fairy tale kingdom, the beautiful Miss Audrey, wearing a simple wreath made of red, white, purple or blue flowers, and a light white dress, was barefoot, dipping her feet into a crystal clear lake. Sometimes she gently hit the water surface, and a string of water splashes were swung into the air, and the water droplets flashing the sun's light were accompanied by Audrey's pleasant and cheerful laughter. Asta did not disturb her, but just stood there, watching Audrey's fairy tale kingdom. Let her live in the rare fairy tale kingdom for a while. But why is Susie not with Audrey? Shouldn't it be inseparable from Audrey? Asta stayed for a while and then stepped onto the sea ahead. He saw Furs in a small house, lying on a soft and comfortable big bed, hugging a half-person high pillow, and there was a desk next to it, and scattered manuscripts continued to extend from the desk. And the manuscripts were written by pens that could automatically write wonderful stories without the need for the owner to operate. Tisk, what a nice dream. Asta watched for a while, stretched out his hand and gently tapped a starlight, and the pen that was automatically writing the story stopped. The soft big bed where Furs was lying also turned into a hard wooden bed, and the room turned into a prison with only one window. In the prison, there was also a desk, which had the pens, ink, paper and inkstone needed to write novels. On the wall opposite the wooden bed, it was written in Loan. You can leave only after you have written more than 1,000,000 words. Furs, who was not used to the hardness of the wooden bed, finally woke up from her dream. Looking at the unfamiliar things in front of her, she was stunned for a long time. She wanted to get up and push open the window to leave the prison, but it was useless. She could only sit back on the bed and stare blankly at the line of words on the wall. 1,000,000 words, isn't this going to kill her? Furs grabbed a few handfuls of hair in annoyance, and finally sat down at the desk and began to write a new novel story. Asta admired Furs, who had entered the writing state for a while, nodded with satisfaction and left. People can't always have beautiful dreams, sometimes nightmares can make people keep improving. Passing by Furs's dream, Asta found Shu not far away. At this moment, Shu stood above the clouds and was fighting with a golden mind dragon. The appearance of holding the judgment hammer and wearing silver-white armor really had a heroic feeling. When Asta looked at the mind dragon with golden scales, his expression was a little bit unbearable. The sacred and mighty mind dragon with domineering appearance was Susie's transformation. In its dream, it was a giant dragon of the mind. Asta watched carefully for a while and found that Susie was not affected by this common dream at all. It just deliberately changed into the appearance of a giant dragon of the mind to play with Hugh. As the battle continued, Susie basically suppressed Hugh, but Hugh always showed his perseverance and never gave up. The man and the dog continued to fight fiercely. The only pity was that Susie did not suppress Hugh while shouting to accept people's pets. Asta continued to move forward and passed the dreams of the cook and the maid along the way. Their dreams were very similar. They were all on a starry night, following a yellow figure that kept moving forward. Very good, very pious. Asta went further and saw Klein. He was not affected by the power here. He just found a safe place to stay and wait for tomorrow's awakening. Seeing Hastur coming, Klein couldn't help but ask, "Why can Mr. Hastur see through my disguise every time? Is my disguise skill not good enough?" "Because of fate, Mr. Klein." "What kind of fate?" "The fate of meeting." Klein wanted to say this word, but he held back. The other party was obviously perfunctory, so he didn't continue the topic. Asta didn't want to continue to hang out, so he stayed here and talked to Klein about a lot of mystical knowledge, including the formation of this sea of ruins, and the things between the two brothers Aemon and Adam. The night was soon replaced by the day, and the dream dissipated with the departure of the night. When the morning sun fell and shone through the window onto the bed, Audrey and others woke up from their deep sleep. "Mr. Hastur, have you been guarding here all night?" The first thing Audrey saw when she opened her eyes was Hastur sitting by the window, smiling at her. "Well, I'm afraid someone will be too lonely." Faced with such teasing, Audrey just smiled. She would not blush shyly because of such words. But when Hastur mentioned the fairy tale kingdom in the dream, Audrey's forced calmness finally broke down. The blushing cheeks were more beautiful than the clouds on the horizon. On the other side, Furs woke up and subconsciously shook her sore wrists, then began to recall the nightmare of last night, and her eyes became dull little by little. And Hugh, who had been fighting with the dragon of the mind all night, was still full of energy and spirit. He even posed a few fighting postures and shouted a few words from time to time to boost his momentum. The hope continued to move forward. One night, the people on the ship finally heard the faint singing of the mermaid. The most excited person was Klein. After saying goodbye to Hastur, he left the Hope alone and headed for the sea where the mermaid appeared. He had made all the preparations, except for taking the potion tonight. P.S. Dear readers, please pay attention to your 3 meals a day, otherwise you will end up like me, with terrible stomach pain at night and taking injections that I haven't had for many years. The empty and low melody came from the distant sea, like weeping and complaining, as if there were elves singing loudly on the sea under the moonlight. But it was still a bit far from here, and only intermittent and unreal singing could be heard. "Mr. Asta, is this the song of mermaids?" Shu pulled Furs over with excitement, and Audrey's eyes lit up. Mermaids, these are the legendary sea elves. Not only do they sing beautifully, but they also look impeccable. They often have long aqua blue hair and like to emerge from the depths of the sea on moonlit nights, singing softly on the rocks on the sea surface facing the moonlight. It is indeed the song of mermaids. Not far ahead, Asta gave an answer that made them very happy. Zio couldn't wait to ask, "Can we go and take a look from a distance now?" Wait a little longer. Asta wanted to give Klein a little more time and let him walk farther away to avoid bumping into him and delaying his promotion to the Master of Secret Dolls. "Where is Mr. Wilson?" After chatting for a while, Audrey keenly discovered that Mr. Wilson, who was suspected to be Mr. World, was not on the ship at the moment. Combined with the fact that Mr. World had asked for clues about mermaids at the Tarot Club before, everything seemed to overlap. The natural biologist was Mr. World. He should have gone to find mermaids and started to be promoted to a higher sequence. This discovery made her a little excited. She was thinking about whether she should confront Mr. World when he came back. And Ms. Furs, she probably didn't know her true identity yet. But Mr. Hanged Man had said before that offline gatherings were not a good choice. Audrey hesitated for a while, and was pulled to the bow by Zio and Furs to listen carefully to the mermaids singing. After about an hour, Hastur arranged a small boat, paddled manually, and took Audrey and others and Susie to the sea where mermaids appeared. As the boat approached, the mermaids' singing became more and more obvious. The low voices that seemed to come from the deep sea made the listeners' hearts ethereal and graceful. Audrey had closed her eyes and listened carefully to the melody from the sea, her fingers gently beating the rhythm on her knees. When they got closer, Hastur stopped the boat and did not move forward. Looking from here, you can see a group of graceful figures sitting on the dark reefs in front of you, singing to the sky. Now, except for those raised by the Church of the Goddess of Night, mermaids have become endangered species in the sea. Once strangers approach them, they will quickly dive into the depths of the sea to avoid being caught by humans. Is this the only way? Well, if you get any closer, you'll disturb them. It's a pity that I can't see their specific appearance clearly. Sometimes, if you see too clearly, you lose the sense of mystery. Asta would rather not see the true face of the so-called mermaid. The mermaid in fantasy is a beautiful woman with a fishtail. Except for the lower body, everything else is the same as humans. But this is just a fantasy from humans. The real mermaids don't look so stunning. In terms of appearance, Audrey can crush them all, and even Furs can compete with them. The special thing about them is that their chests are wrapped and covered with dark red scales, and their lower body is a huge fishtail. This unique place makes their appearance more beautiful, especially at night. Of course, there are always some people whose sexual fetishes are different. Asta looked for a while and thought of a question, that is, Russell claimed to be the protagonist of an era. Doesn't he have any interest in legendary creatures like mermaids? Why didn't he leave a message saying that being a mermaid is really good? Given Russell's personality, if he really did such a thing, he would definitely write it in his diary secretly. After all, serious people don't write diaries. So, did Russell try it or not? This is really a historical question worth pondering. They are swimming towards us. Zio suddenly lowered his voice. The mermaids in the field of vision seemed to be frightened by something, and they jumped from the reef into the sea one after another, and then swam towards Hastur and others. At this time, with the bright stars in the sky, Audrey and others finally saw the front of the mermaids. They do have human heads, and their general appearance is pure and gorgeous. The scales on their chests and the fish-like tails are the parts that make people stare at them. Zio quietly stretched out his hand to gesture at his legs, and was surprised that his legs were not even as good as the fishtails of others. No, it's definitely not that he is too short. Humans and mermaids are two different creatures. How can they be compared so casually? The beautiful singing voice still came from the sea ahead, ethereal, like a gentle sea breeze brushing across the heart, a little itchy, but very comfortable. "Mr. Asta, can I ask you a question?" "Ask." Shu thought for a while before whispering, "How do mermaids reproduce?" Although Audrey and Furs were a little shy, they also quietly moved closer to hear the answer to this question. They reproduce through viviparity, just like humans. As for the method of fertilization, you can refer to normal fish. This used to be a very interesting topic. As early as 200 years ago, some scientists dissected mermaids, studied their populations and individual physiological characteristics in detail, and published a book based on this. Asta tried to keep his tone calm and objective, without any personal subjective emotions. So that's how it is. Shu covered his obviously hot cheeks with his hands and huddled behind Furs. Audrey and Furs pretended not to hear anything and looked away, but their cheeks were also stained with a blush. Fortunately, Shu did not ask what kind of offspring would be born if humans and mermaids had intercourse. In fact, there were really crazy scientists who conducted experiments on this in the past. In the end, the offspring born from the experiment were freaks, which stopped many people's sexual fetishes. Otherwise, there used to be many nobles who specialized in catching mermaids from the sea and kept them in their own aquariums, or in artificial ponds and lakes. Anyway, as long as you don't look at the lower body, mermaids are not much different from normal humans. However, this kind of content describing the ugly events of the nobility is only recorded in a few books. Audrey normally cannot access such books, and ordinary people have no chance to read them. As the stars move in the sky, the mermaids on the reefs stop singing and dive into the depths of the sea, waiting to come out the next night. Admiring the perfect mermaids, Hasta paddled Audrey and others back to the Hope. When they got on the ship, the sky was already bright. Klein also finished his promotion and returned to the ship. He had taken a bath and fell asleep. The next day, Klein walked out of the room with a refreshed face. After successfully being promoted, he was already a Sequence 5 puppet master. This sequence not only has a strong ability to protect itself, but also has a very strange offensiveness, which instantly increases his combat effectiveness. If he meets the Vice Admiral of Disease again, he is sure to defeat him easily. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson." Audrey came over and greeted Klein naturally. Klein bowed slightly and saluted, "Good morning, Miss Audrey. When the mermaid sang last night, Mr. Wilson didn't seem to be on the boat. I'm used to observing these legendary creatures alone, so I didn't set out with Miss Audrey and others." "Oh, is that so?" Audrey nodded and didn't continue the topic. She decided not to expose the true identity of Mr. Wilson in front of her. Such an accidental encounter was also quite interesting. After breakfast, Klein originally wanted to say goodbye and leave. After all, he still owed Mr. Hasta 1,000 gold pounds. He had to hurry up to hunt pirates and earn bounties to pay off his debts. "Mr. Wilson, in addition to looking for mermaids, we also have to look for the legendary Fountain of Youth. If you want to go back, you can only take a boat by yourself." Klein thought about it and decided to follow Hasta and others to find the Fountain of Youth first, and then leave this sea of ruins together. It's too risky to take a boat alone. If something unexpected happens, he doesn't want to drift to an isolated island and perform Robinson Crusoe again. A few days later, under Hasta's guidance, the Hope gradually approached the sea area with a strong breath of life. The originally golden sea area was blocked by a black ruin. The waves here were particularly turbulent, and the Hope was almost hit directly on the ruins several times. The Hope circled the ruins and did not find a place to go straight. Obviously, if they want to find the so-called Fountain of Youth, they need to walk through the black ruins in front of them. The ruins have been eroded by the sea for a long time, and the stones have been corroded into various shapes, like tofu with holes. Entering inside, there is a risk of being crushed by the ruins at any time. Hasta asked Audrey and the others to choose whether to enter. Furs was the first to give up. Zio and Audrey were willing to go in for adventure. Klein also followed to the ruins, and Susie was left on the boat. When the four of them stepped onto the black ruins, the scenery in front of them suddenly changed, and a river shining with silver-white light flowed under their feet. In front of them was a majestic palace complex that had not collapsed yet. The main colors of the palace complex are gold and silver, sacred and glorious, instead of the black land that collapsed and was abandoned later. This is the work of the Angel of Destiny Ouroboros. Hasta and Klein noticed the abnormality here at the same time. They obviously stepped into the long river of Ouroboros, time and came to the era when this palace complex had not collapsed. The sacred and majestic halls are spread out in the shape of a ring. The halls are adjacent to each other and share a long corridor. Murals recording ancient stories are carved on the walls on both sides of the corridor. The general content is the process from the awakening of the ancient sun god to the gradual resumption of his authority. Finally, the 8 kings of angels surround the ancient sun god. Such a scene is undoubtedly very shocking to Audrey and Zio. The ancient sun god was a being known as the creator, and his status was higher than the current true gods. Although Klein knew something about this part of history, it was the first time he had seen it in such detail, which made him understand more about the existence of the 8 angel kings. Walking along the corridor to the end, there is no way ahead. In midair are 8 palaces surrounded by different symbols. The palaces of the 8 kings of angels guard the central palace, where there seems to be a sun emitting golden light. Hester looked at it carefully for a while and felt that the scene in front of him was not the place where the ancient sun god actually lived, but a miniature version of the palace created by Aurelius himself. Because the real ancient sun god lives in the giant king's court in the god's abandoned land, this place has obviously not yet entered the god's abandoned land. Audrey and others tried to get closer, but there seemed to be an invisible barrier in front of them, preventing them from taking another step forward. They could only stay where they were and look up. "How do we get out of here?" Zio asked worriedly. "Perhaps we can look for relevant clues from the murals." Klein remembered that when Little Sun and the others escaped from trouble, they had to destroy the long river of destiny connected end to end on the mural before successfully returning to the real world. But before Klein could search for the river of destiny left by Aurelius on the mural on the walls suddenly disappeared completely. The sun in the central hall rose suddenly, and then exploded, and countless golden blood rushed in fiercely like the waves of sea water. Zio's little face turned pale with fright. At this moment, they had no place to escape from the turbulent sea water. Audrey also consciously clenched Haster's sleeves and moved closer to him. Klein frowned and glanced at Haster, who was still calm, and he felt relieved. "This is a picture from a long time ago, an illusion, and we are just a group of historical bystanders," Haster whispered softly, letting the turbulent golden seawater rush through his body and spread farther away. "Is this how the Sea of Ruins was formed?" Klein also figured out the key points here. The day the ancient sun god fell was the birthday of the Sea of Ruins. Haster confirmed Klein's guess and stared closely at the center of the broken sun in the sky. As the golden blood sprays, a clear source seems to be forming there. Fountain of Youth? When the ancient sun god fell, a source of powerful vitality formed spontaneously. Just using the Fountain of Youth to describe it would be too inaccurate. It should be the source of life from the ancient sun god. Moreover, this evolution process is too simplistic, and it is obvious that Aurelius has omitted some key points. Perhaps this is why this place has been preserved to this day. If it really involves the gods, they might turn their attention to it and destroy this place. Haster and others quietly watched the scene in front of them evolve over time, and a long river of time appeared under their feet, which was constantly disintegrating and dissipating. When the river of time completely dissipated, Haster and others also returned to the black ruins. There is no golden sun in front, nor the Fountain of Youth that was born. Only Aurelius is floating in the air with his white wings spread out. "God, angel," Zio said excitedly, but soon she covered her mouth with both hands, not daring to speak anymore. Only her eyes were particularly bright. Audrey was also deeply shocked. The Aurelius in this scene was no different from the angel murals and angel reliefs depicted in the church. A handsome face, white wings, bare feet, a simple white robe, and a transcendent figure standing in the sky. The sacred is born because of their existence. Angel of Destiny Aurelius. This should be his true body, right? Klein's heart trembled. This was the genuine king of angels, and he was also a believer in the true creator. He was extremely dangerous. When they were sizing up Aurelius, his eyes also fell on them. After scanning around, his eyes focused on Haster, but in the end he didn't find anything unusual. "I just saw that the other party was a believer of the stars, and he had the aura of the stars. Leave." Aurelius just spoke lightly and did not kill him. This sentence made Audrey and others feel relieved. It was already a miracle that they could leave here alive. "We want to find the Fountain of Youth." Hastur's words made their hearts lift again. There was an angel in front of them. How dare he talk to an angel like this? If you accidentally offend the angel. Aurelius did not speak, but gently drew a long silver-white river to cut off the distance between Hastur and the others and the ruins. By the time they reacted, they had already returned to the ship, and the ruins in front of them had disappeared, let alone the Fountain of Youth. It's just that there is an extra picture in Hastur's mind, which was the content that was missing in the birth of the Fountain of Youth. Lotus blossoms in the mud. The real birthplace of the Fountain of Youth is the birthplace of the real creator. The real creator gathers all the negative emotions after the fall of the ancient sun god, dark, degenerate, filthy and other dirty and smelly adjectives. And the so-called Fountain of Youth was born in this environment. It has the taste of the yin and yang in Taoism. The Fountain of Hope blooms in the land of despair, and the dirty land is the holy place. No wonder Ouroboros doesn't want them to get close. There is a sense that is the holy place where the real creator was born. Asta smiled and said, "Return." Audrey and others nodded at the same time. As for the Fountain of Youth, let it continue to be a legend. Late at night, sitting cross-legged in the ruins, Ouroboros, who was reminiscing about the past, looked at the star container that suddenly appeared in front of him. "What are you doing here? I just want to come and see and miss the ancient sun god." Ouroboros didn't say anything else, and remained silent. The star container just looked at the ruins quietly. When the sun was about to dispel the darkness, Ouroboros reached into the river of time and ejected 5 small golden drops of water. That was the water from the so-called Fountain of Youth. "Don't disturb the peace here again, only this time." The star container turned into a starlight and disappeared in the sunlight. The return journey was fast. When the Hope left the Sea of Ruins and arrived at a nearby port, Klein got off the ship and left, leaving only an IOU for 1,000 gold pounds. Seeing this scene, Audrey sighed sincerely. Mr. World is so poor. He was mysterious and powerful in the Tarot Club and had rich knowledge of mysticism, but in the real world, he even needed to write an IOU for 1,000 gold pounds. If Mr. World was willing to speak, he could help him pay it back directly. Perhaps this is why Mr. World deliberately concealed his identity. People always don't like to show their miserable side in front of acquaintances they know. In order to celebrate meeting the angel and coming back alive, Shu paid out of her own pocket and wanted to invite Hastur and others to the port bar for a drink, but was rejected by Furs and Audrey. Just staying at the port for a while, they heard a lot of stories about the 3-man 1-dog combination. Audrey didn't want such deeds and her portrait to be transmitted back to Backland in the future. In order to solve this problem, she would deliberately erase the pirates' memories of her appearance when she took action before. If she showed up in the bar with Shu, she would definitely be recognized on the spot. Furs was also worried about this. After all, Shu was the one who appeared the most among the 3 of them. Shu was a little disappointed at first, but when Hastur handed her a new bounty poster to flip through, she suddenly calmed down. As the one who appeared the most among the 3-man 1-dog combination, the bounty offered by the pirates was 2,000 gold pounds. Such a bounty almost moved Furs, and looked at Shu with a faint gaze, indicating whether she should sacrifice herself for the happiness of her friends. "Don't even think about it," Shu cut off Furs's delusion directly. Furs said with regret, "I finally waited for the day when you are valuable." Shu was silent for a while and began to grind his teeth. "Shu, I actually think you can go and help the wise lady. Isn't she planning to establish a country? If you follow her, you can easily become a noble in the future, so that you can restore the glory of your family." Furs hurriedly changed the subject to avoid being pounced on by Shu. "Where you fall, you will get up there. Humph, sooner or later I will let the Lowen royal family recognize and restore the honor of our family." Shu's voice suddenly rose a lot. Hearing about the Lowen royal family, Audrey, who was listening, subconsciously glanced at Asta. Asta just smiled and looked back at Audrey, and didn't say anything. Punning port, the voyaged Hope returned to the place where it started.